It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott is here. Well, actually, he's in Dallas. Richard Campbell's home in beautiful British Columbia. We've got lots to talk about. The big story, of course, 24H2 is finally here. Paul has some recommendations and big updates to Copilot, plus new games for Xbox. All that coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 901, recorded October 2nd, 2024. 75% corn. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Microsoft. And today's a big news day, I think, so let us not delay. Get all the winners and dozers together, and Paul Thurrott's here. Are you in Dallas, Texas, Tejas?
Yes, I am.
Look at that beautiful room you're in.
Fancy. I am looking out a sea of nothingness. Is the Dallas metro area the flattest place on earth, perhaps?
Well, and then are you on your way to Mexico after this?
Yeah, tomorrow we fly to Mexico.
It's kind of on the way, isn't it? He's still in his fortress of solitude in beautiful Madeira Park.
Very happy to be at home. Yeah, I'll give you the window view. It's been beautiful.
Oh, Richard, it's so beautiful. Richard Campbell.
Yeah, if you watch closely, there's been sea lions working the salmon out there for the past couple of days. So
they're
doing very well.
Stunning.
Oh, yeah, that's where I just saw a head there. So yeah, the salmon are doing their thing, and they're being feasted upon.
Is it okay to make the show title "I saw a head there," or should we probably?
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. It's the beginning of the show. There's some good titles show up along the way.
Titles.
Yeah,
I wouldn't commit now.
So I'm doing. I think it was Mac Break Weekly yesterday, and then everybody's all excited. 24H2 is here, and I'm going, dude. This is Mac Break Weekly, dude. Wait till tomorrow. Okay, well, tomorrow has come.
Here it is.
24H2 has arrived.
We're all excited.
Are we?
I don't know. Are we? I guess so.
What do you say? What do you say?
I say there's been a lot of shenanigans this year.
Shenanigans.
There you go. That's a title word right there. A lot of shenanigans.
I like that Microsoft announces this like they're the most calm and measured organization on earth, and
everything is fine.
This makes sense.
As you expected, Windows 24H2 has arrived exactly on time.
Well, actually, it's a week earlier.
Even worse.
Next Tuesday would be Patch Tuesday. I sort of assumed that would be the day because reasons, but Microsoft, right? Because reasons. So, as we talked last week and probably the previous 17 weeks, this has been kind of a weird year for. We release things where we release them. Suck it. So here we are.
It's theirs to do, right?
Yeah. So 2024 will go down in the books as being a unique year, unless they somehow manage to duplicate this next year.
2023 was pretty hairy too, man.
I don't mean it that way. I just mean yes, they were both terrible. But they released 24H2 initially, remember, in June with the Copilot PCs, and now they've released it allegedly for everybody. So, we'll see. I am obviously traveling, so I only have 3 computers with me, so I don't have as I don't have as many test cases here, but I'm not seeing it yet. I'll just put it that way. So we'll get to that. But yeah, so in the build up to this, there has been, I always talk about how I don't like multiple displays, but now that I'm stuck on this tiny laptop screen, I'm kind of going nuts here. I can only look at one thing at a time.
Yeah. Dude, the USB powered display is a godsend. It's essential.
I have one. I hardly ever use it.
I have at least 3 at home. I could have brought any of them. Yep.
Yeah, you should have brought them. Yeah. But I do find bringing 2 annoys people. So
because you just,
especially
it's a little wide.
It's because you're using their tray table on the plane, Richard.
Yeah, I don't know. People are high maintenance. I don't know what it's about.
Yeah. I guess if I was feeling up to it, I could just use one of my other Windows laptops as a display, but that takes 30 minutes to set up. So
I should put some hook Velcro on the back of one of them, so I just stick it to the seat back as an above monitor, and that would work.
Man. Anyway, I'm so, you go to war with the Army, you have and whatnot. So here I am. So let's see if I can remember this because it's so convoluted. But Last week was week D. No, the week before was week D.
Yeah.
I'm not losing my mind, man. Okay. Give me a second here. Yes, last week was week D. Microsoft, remember, did not ship any updates on that Tuesday, as would be the schedule.
They were waiting till the show was finished, as usual.
Yeah, pretty much. And so they released the preview update for 22 and 23H2, I think, on Thursday. And then it wasn't until Monday that they released one for 24H2, which is kind of curious timing, right? The 22, 23H2 preview update, was apparently a freaking disaster. So all kinds of reliability problems. People were having instances of computers just rebooting like repeatedly. And so, Microsoft just, I think today or yesterday, took the rare step of issuing something called a known issue rollback, which is actually existed for several years now. In fact, maybe as long as 8 years ago. They've been around a while, but it's basically another update you can install to fix an update that screwed over your computer. It's hilarious. And so if most of the people who would have installed a preview update, of course, are individuals. So you can install this and reboot, and then hopefully you'll be back. But 24H2 is out, so who cares? And then if you're in an organization that somehow allowed this through, which I can't imagine many do, is a group policy, of course, to employ that same fix.
Right.
So there's that. So we ended not last week. We ended Monday with, okay, we're caught up. This is what I sort of predicted. We're good. And then Tuesday came and Microsoft announced approximately 1,100 things related to Windows, one of which was 24H2 is now available, for everybody.
Did they bury it? Is that what it was?
There's not, it's weird in a way because it's weird in a way that 24H2, there's not much to say about it, right? We've been talking about this thing for months, but certainly for the last few weeks, we've been saying, look, it's coming. And
yeah. But we definitely been talking about it for part of a year.
I went through, in fact, I should try to find this right now, but I went through and, I have to update the book for this. And there's a lot of stuff in it, but nothing major. A lot of the stuff that's in it is, kind of behind the scenes things, right? It supports Wi-Fi 7 now. Great. There's support for HDR backgrounds. There's some energy saver changes, some Bluetooth LE audio support changes, right? So these are not things I have to worry about for the book, that they're not user-facing, UI things like the taskbar buttons they keep screwing with just to mess with me. Yeah. So, okay. It's fine. So there's not... we've talked about this, and there are going to be further changes, right? We talked about this account manager, which is a silly name, where they're going to pull out the sign out option, so it's now on the account manager and not via yet another submenu. So that's not actually in the RTM version of 24H2, which Microsoft would never call it that, but let's call a thing what it is, and there you go. So the ISOs are available. They finally addressed ARM64 ISOs. And they addressed it by saying they're not available, which is not,
we all knew
changed.
that.
Yep. It's like saying, getting ready to install, which to me is equivalent to not installing.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me this? But,
which was the state I was always in, except for the moment where I don't want to be anymore.
But there's a note that says we will make those available in the coming weeks. So it's coming. So if you're on an ARM PC or thinking about it, to me, this is the baseline. It's very dangerous to get into the Insider program, for example, to test recall, like will be happening soon, without an ability to go back. So
no, and that would be the whole thing. If you're going to sacrifice a machine to that ARM implementation, if something goes wrong, it's borked until the ISO shows up.
Yep. There are ways around it. There, UUP dump or whatever, UDP dump, whatever it's called, will give you. You could use a Windows Insider ISO. There are things you could do just to have a computer that works, sort of. But that's not right. You don't do that to people in Stable. You want to have the official ISO. So that will happen.
Yeah. Literally, I think we've been counting on this window since June for the few machines that are running these things. I know that they'll hold together.
Still, which speaks to how come it's not available today? You've known about this since when?
It's been months.
Yeah, it's been months and months.
They should have been released in June.
Yep. Microsoft published a document describing the many reasons why you might not be getting this update yet. And there are some interesting ones in there. Easy anti-cheat is apparently...
Still broken?
Yeah, if you have that, you cannot get the update.
Okay.
So
that means they're actually looking for it. They're
so there's
watching for.
Yeah, I guess there'll be a
it'll break the
compatible
game,
version.
right? Like that's a bunch of that's Fortnite. That's like a whole raft of very games that have issues with exploitation.
Right.
And so that's interesting that the installer checks to see, are you running this? Do you have anything that installs that has easy cheat cheat on it?
I'm curious. Some of these are curious to me because you would think Windows 11 to Windows 11, this stuff should just work. But there are Intel Smart Sound technology drivers that are incompatible. Wallpaper
this all
customization.
sounds Ring Zero stuff.
I know. Well, fingerprint sensors, But here's the one that's not Ring Zero. This is my favorite one on the list. This is so funny. Asphalt 8 Airborne, the game.
What?
If you have it installed, it will not install 24H2, which is okay. It's I don't know. So whatever.
I mean, so here's the question. The implication there, Paul, is that the CrowdStrike incident has changed the course of 24H2.
I love it. I hope that's true.
That's the implication.
That's good, right?
Yeah,
maybe.
If they're really going to start enforcing more, you have to go through the API. You don't get to play in Ring Zero anymore. That is good. It's interesting to see what breaks, but this is the same as like Ned Pyle pushing on no SMB1. And the best way to find out if you have SMB1 is to turn it off and listen for the screams, right? Like they're coming.
Yep. That's funny.
Maybe not the
that scream is coming from your out of support WD NAS. Would you upgrade already?
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes.
Yes.
So there's a new term Microsoft's using, and it's not from today or yesterday. It's fairly recent development, but they're describing this as a full OS swap, meaning it's not an enablement package, right?
Yeah, it's an OS replace.
It's like an old school upgrade. It's a literal, which I don't know why we have to point that out, but okay. I don't know where that term came from, but
I did a show with Aria Carly, who's now Aria Hansen. Congratulations, she got married. Who's one of my update goddesses, and she talked exactly in those terms that they are alternating between an enablement package, which is a bunch of feature adds, and an OS replacement.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, it's just the language. Like I believe, maybe I'm getting it wrong. I think it was full OS swap. And it's like, okay, I guess it's that. I've never heard it, that term before.
Phrased that way, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all over the place all of a sudden, so maybe that's the new term.
Yeah, they got a new language.
Yeah. And then I didn't write about this myself, but Mary Jo did, and I'm sure others did. But I think this is the first LTSC version of Windows 11. So this is the long-term servicing channel release, right? This is the thing that was missing from Windows 11 when it first appeared, which was keeping apparently some people on 10.
It was one of the excuses.
Yeah, Microsoft is very, very strenuously recommends not using this. Yeah. It's for specialty installs in certain situations. There's a version of Enterprise and a version for IoT. Enterprise.
Why does Microsoft not push it?
Because it doesn't install updates, Leo. They really would like
no ads, huh?
Yeah. I mean, so part of
no security patches.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay.
But even I was, again, I don't cover this part of the world per se that much anymore, but there's a group policy for IT admins or for organizations that are managing deployment of software, right? And your choices with 24H2, which, by the way, again, full OS swap, it's not a simple, fast little process, is you can make it available to your users, or you can make it available as a preview, like an optional update. I guess we're giving them the option to install this thing. What are you doing? One of the options is do not install this thing?
No, that's not an option.
Not an option.
The question is, do you want to give your users a choice of when to install it? That's all. Right.
Yeah. So you're installing it.
It's happening one way or the other, but it's sort of I've talked to plenty of sysadmins that do this. It's like this will be installed by Friday, but you get to pick the day this week that it installs. So it's like you're going out of the office for the afternoon, start it and then leave.
It's choice adjacent. Is what I'm hearing.
It's choice-ish.
Yeah. It's Yeah, it's like it's like one of those rail-based video games where it makes you feel like you're actually making choices, but you really can only go in this direction.
You're on the track. The track
Yeah,
is
so
the track.
for most people on unmanaged PCs and Windows Home and Windows Pro as individuals, 2 years of support. I think it's 3 years for enterprise and education, I want to say, and then 5 years for LTSC, if I'm not mistaken. So, not that it matters because we're all, it's November's going to come and you're going to be updated. So who cares?
Yeah.
Is
Those
the
numbers
presumption with LTSC that manual updates will be applied at the IT department's discretion?
Actually, I think the assumption is that these are PCs that are not necessarily
They're
used
offline.
by
Not
people.
online.
Yeah, they're in some back room doing some whatever it might be. Yeah, I think that's
hence the
assumption.
IoT version, those kinds of things. They're the offline machines that they would have to be manually updated, but then they also don't have the same level of
See,
exposure.
it's different in the Linux world. They have long-term support versions of most Linux.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Linux
they
also
get
has a
updates.
kernel that doesn't get hacked by security companies.
Yeah.
So there are changes. There are different approaches.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's something about Windows that this has always been the case, where there's this group of people that want to do this thing where they're running some enterprise/server, whatever version, but as a client. And part of the reason is they don't want, now these days, they don't want the updates, right? So the earliest version of this was Mark Razinovich documenting in Windows NT Magazine how you could make a single change to the registry to turn Windows NT4 workstation into server, right? Which was beautiful.
Hey. Sorry, I didn't.
that was not just a random outburst, but a very precise and short outburst. I'm like, is there more coming?
No, that's it.
Okay. So, the Windows
Nice.
Server in 2003, 2008, whatever time frame, there was that kind of a desktop package you could install to kind of give it the XP look and feel back in that day or whatever. And then obviously with server, they go in this completely different direction where what they want for a long time is just like server core, command line interface, no GUI, et cetera, et cetera. But this is still a thing. There are people that look, I did this myself just to look into it, maybe I can run enterprise, and I know there are people out there like, man, I need LTSC. I need it. I just I want to just control that myself. And, I would just say, give in to the matrix, guys. It's over. So just walk away from this. But I get it. I feel it myself. All right.
Yeah.
What else do we have on this single screen machine that I can't stand using?
Boot it up.
So we've had a couple of Windows Insider builds since the last time we spoke. Dev and Beta channel both got a build. Both of them have one new feature, nothing particularly interesting, but Dev channel 6 gigahertz support for mobile hotspot. So right now it's 2, 4, and 5. If you're familiar with this feature, I just literally used it on a plane, which probably is illegal. And you can choose between 2.4 and 5 gig options, but all gigahertz, but also best, choose any available. So whatever the device can connect with, it will use both.
I don't know why you'd choose anything else than whatever's there.
Yeah. So unfortunately with 6 though, if you choose 6, you're only 6 and you don't have a choice. So apparently this is new, right? So it's a new spectrum or whatever, but that's kind of odd. And then there's just a single language change. If you're familiar with the out-of-box experience, by this point I've probably run 260,000 times or something, whatever it is. There's a step in there where they refer to in the out-of-box experience, where they refer to something called tailored experiences. This is like one of the tips in the book where I tell you just to don't ever do that. It's basically you're allowing them to track you more. Mm-hmm. They're going to call that personalized offers now.
Nice.
So you don't want to turn that off.
So you know what it means.
Whatever the name is, right? And then last time we spoke about this, it must have gone to Canary and Dev. So now beta and release preview channels are getting the new version of the snipping tool. This is the one where you get to choose where the screenshots and screen captures are saved if you'd like to, right? You can change the file. Yeah. Not a lot there, but
okay.
And then today,
It is interesting to see what this is going to become now post 24H2.
Yeah. You like the new version of OS? Yeah. Oh, here's another one. It's already changing.
How long before we start talking about 25H2? Because
please
it's not going to be long.
Please, this is not iPhone Weekly, man. We're not doing that.
That's exactly what happens in the iPhone world. Okay, we got the new one. So when's the next one? Yeah.
When's the next one?
Well, it's always like, you might want to skip the iPhone 17. It's like, I just got an iPhone 16. What are you talking about? You're like, what is that? This is what you're writing about?
Hey, speaking of the out-of-box experience.
Yes.
Where is my
I was like, yes.
yes?
Snapdragon kit?
Where is my Qualcomm Snapdragon Elite developers kit? Where?
I checked
This
my
is a this is a
delivery
weird
date today.
thing. It
What do you
says
got?
it shipped October 2nd. That's today.
Oh,
for
yeah.
delivery
Estimated ship.
in September 19th.
Yeah. Mine is October 2nd, delivery September 20th, which is awesome. I love everything about that.
How come yours is delayed?
But I got, well, everything's delayed. I got an email today, a new one.
Yep.
From them, from Arrow Electronics, saying
Oh.
that they're excited to have received some supply of the Snapdragon development kits for Windows. And
Just
they're
not
gonna-
yours.
and we know they're working hard to provide additional units as soon as possible. At this time, we expect more units to arrive in the coming weeks, and we'll fulfill your order as soon as the units come available. So it sounds like I'm not in the first batch.
It's nice that they sent you an email. They haven't sent me anything.
This is the weird part. Then they say, as a reminder, the initial orders had the purchase price reduced by 10%. Do I remember that? Okay. If you still wish to receive these units as ordered, you need to do nothing.
Well, that's relief.
You know, like, okay, an order. But what does that imply? If I do something changes? If you would like to modify shipping terms or even cancel your order based upon these changes, I don't know what the changes are, you can notify us. Canceling your shipping changes will receive a real full refund if applicable. So what this implies to me is that there's a new price for the product going forward. And if you mess with your existing order, you won't get that price anymore.
That's
You'll
right.
get a new price.
Oh yeah, I just got that email too. I got it yesterday. Yeah.
And you know what the other thing on this might imply as well is they may be shipping immediately on the new price because they make more money on it.
Oh, God.
That's really annoying.
Yeah. But,
This has all the. This is when a company's going out of business and you've
Yeah.
sent them money and you just really kind of want to get the thing or maybe get the money back and what's happening.
well, yeah, that's my little Kickstarter lamp, the little dude, the little green dude. That's exactly what ended up happening with that. Delayed until I finally got somebody on. And it's like, so if I pay an extra $40 in shipping, I get this like next week. Yeah, all right. Here's the $40. You know,
And then
I
they
just-
ghosted you for 2 more weeks.
No, I got it right away,
Okay.
but then I named it the bargain,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because it was a
yeah.
$200 lamp held up by $40 in shipping.
So yeah, I got
Well-
the same email yesterday. Now that
Yeah.
but it went in my spam.
The good news is this is coming via Qualcomm. So it's just not. This may be a fly-by-night company they chose to go with, but I mean, Qualcomm can't let this go bad, right?
I'm not even. I mean, again, I used a credit card, so credit card
Did they
rules are
bill
pretty
you?
simple. I can reverse it. No, I have been charged.
Okay, so
And
that's
that
legally
card
they're not
expires
supposed
in
to charge you.
February, right? So they take much longer.
Ooh, you may not get it.
Yeah, who knows?
I want it. I still want it.
I
right?
wanted to, and apparently Geerling got one. We were talking about this before the show started, but Jeff Geerling's already got a YouTube video.
That's
up
the
now.
purpose of the email. Is we sent one.
We sent
See,
one to
yeah,
Jeff
see, they're
Geerling.
shipping.
Yeah, because he's way.
They're
more
like,
important
see,
than
it's
all of
shipping.
you.
I
Get
mean, they're
upset
shipping.
because we did send one.
But I also appreciate. I think Burdick mentioned this. That Berzik mentioned this. That Geerling immediately installed Linux on it, which is what I want to do with it anyway, because I want to turn it into an HA box.
That's
So
brutal, and I'm not. What is wrong with you people? So, did he notice any homemade looking stuff inside of it or anything? Did he look for?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, what's the HDMI port look like? Is it
glued?
glued?
Yeah, exactly. Is it super glued over?
Yeah, it's a little plastic cat. Yeah, a little piece of duct tape over that, and here's your dongle.
I will keep it as a regular Windows machine for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
You have my word.
I know what that language means. That's. Yeah, it's like when my kids figured out like what "will see" means. They're like, we know what that means. That means
see.
no.
Maybe we'll see. All right, let's take a little break and continue on. That triangle of sadness now over. The Qualcomm triangle of sadness.
Oh, God.
The Arrow triangle of sadness. We will have more with Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell on this fine network. Thank you for all of you watching. 616 watching live on X.com and Facebook and LinkedIn and Kick and Discord, of course, for our club members. What have I left off? Oh, YouTube. I've heard of them. And Twitch. 7 different places you can watch, and we love having all of you. I get to see a unified chat version, so I could see all your chat messages, and I try to respond if I can, if I'm not busy, because I'm doing all the finger stuff. But anyway, we're glad to have you, and we're especially glad to have our Club Twit members. They are the the salt of the earth, the bread that makes the butter, the whatever, tastes good. Our show today brought to you by Thanks to Canary. Now, this is a sponsor I have been talking about for, I think, 7 years now. And it's so cool. It is a honeypot, okay? It looks like an external USB drive. Just a little black box. You hook it up to power, you hook it up to Ethernet, and then you relax. You sit back, you wait. Because this honeypot, which can be deployed easily in minutes, and you can choose it to be anything you want, a Windows LTSC Windows server that hasn't been patched in years, for instance. I have mine as a network attached storage, even like things like SCADA devices. It's just checkboxes, and it is a beautiful impersonation. These Thanks Canaries really look like the real deal. The MAC addresses are right. The user interface is right. And that's what's cool, because as soon as the bad guy sees it, they don't look vulnerable. They look valuable. They look, oh, I got to get into that, right? As soon as they log in, they think they're logging in, but you're going to get a message. Only the alerts that matter, no false messages. They can also create Lure files, PDFs, docs, Excel spreadsheets, whatever you want, that you could sprinkle around your network with attractive names like payroll information. And if somebody tries to open those, boom, or brute forces your fake internal SSH server, your Thanks Canary will immediately tell you, hey, there's somebody inside the network. No false alerts, just alerts when you really want to know. And you get the alerts in any way you want: email, SMS, syslog. It supports webhooks. There's even an API if you want to write your own. Just choose a profile for your Thanks Canary device. Register it with a hosted console. You get monitoring, you get notifications, then you wait. Attackers who breached your network or malicious insiders, the evil maid, other adversaries, they make themselves known by accessing your Thanks Canary, and then the jig is up. On average, companies don't know they've been breached for 91 days, for months. And that is those 90 days, that's bad news. That's somebody wandering around inside your network, unknown, unnoticed, looking at everything, exfiltrating what they want. No, you need a Thanks Canary. Visit canary.tools/twit. Find out more. For a small operation like ours, maybe 5 big banks might have hundreds, but let's give you the pricing for 5 Thanks Canaries, $7,500 all in. You get your own hosted console, you get upgrades, you get support and maintenance. So 5 Thanks Canaries, $7,500, your own hosted console, you get the upgrades, the support, the maintenance. If you use the code TWIT in the How Did You Hear About Us box, by the way, you get 10% off for life, not just for the first year, but for as long as you used your Thanks Canary. And if you're saying, well, I don't know, you can always return your Thanks Canary with their 2-month money-back guarantee for a full refund. You have 60 days to decide. But I should tell you that in all the years Twit has partnered with Thanks Canary, no one has ever asked for their money back. That guarantee has never been claimed because it works. It does exactly what I just said it does. And it does it so beautifully, so elegantly. These honeypots are a must-have for every network. Visit canary.tools/twit. By the way, enter the code TWIT in the How Did You Hear About Us box. You're going to get 10% off for life. Canary.tools/twit. We thank Thanks Canary for a great product, which we use, and for being supporters of Windows Weekly. We also really appreciate that. Canary.tools/twit. On we go with the exciting bandwagon of news and information.
Yeah, the cornucopia, if you will, of Copilot.
We had Daniel Rubino on Twit on Sunday, and he kept saying, I can't tell you, but there's big stuff coming. There's big stuff coming. Can't tell you.
Okay.
Well, Microsoft had some big Copilot announcements.
I know you're not really supposed to even allude to it, but fair enough.
He didn't. He said, I wish I could allude to it, but I can't.
He literally mentioned it, though.
Yeah.
Like, why would he say that?
While alluding to it, he said he couldn't allude to it.
I'm sorry, Daniel, I didn't want to get you in trouble. He didn't allude to anything. We were just talking.
Yeah.
Microsoft has talked about a Wave 2.
Yeah.
So was this
like
Wave 2?
It's like when you have Montezuma's Revenge. Like Wave 2 is the one you got to get through. No, I don't.
Before the Cipro kicks in.
Oh,
yeah. No, so Microsoft did a Wave 2 for Copilot for Business, right? A couple of weeks ago, Copilot for Microsoft 365, or as now we're calling it again, Microsoft 365 Copilot, because seriously, my head just stopped spinning. Thank you for doing it again.
Pick a name, any name.
And yes, please. So now we're seeing the kind of consumer one. So adding to the confusion, of course, we have Copilot, which is the app that's in Windows and in Edge, I guess, and on mobile, actually, but whatever. And we also have Copilot Plus PCs, both of which have their own things going on. So, of course, they announced new features for both on the same day. So it's fun trying to keep track of this stuff. So we'll start with Copilot, which is in Windows 11 now, is the app, right? This is the thing they jammed down our throats last September as part of 22H2, 3 seconds before they shipped 23H2, ensuring everyone would get it. It started off as a pane in the side. Then it became a resizable pane, and then it became an app, and they moved the icon 3 times, and now it's a year later. So hilarious. But they're adding features to it and making it a little more useful. If you think back to when they first launched this, there were basically 2 things there. There was the text or the chat-based interface like you would have at copilot.microsoft.com. And then there were also these kind of Windows 11, I don't know what to call them, feature launchers, like I would like to make my screen dark or whatever, and it would go into settings and say, is this what you want? And it was pretty limited, right? There were always going to be more of those, but now there are none of those. So that was one of the fun changes that occurred between then and now. And now they've announced these additional features, which are, I don't ever purposely launch Copilot, but I do sometimes launch it, and I keep waiting for it. And
occasionally your mouse strays over that gigantic icon.
Yeah, well, in my case, it's
leads to activity, right?
It's these giant hands, fingers hitting the wrong key. Yeah. So I have not gotten this update yet, but there are a bunch of things that will occur here. Not much of this is very interesting to me, honestly. I would say, compared to the Copilot Plus PC stuff, not super exciting. But turning it into more of an AI companion, which, kind of the original vision for, Cortana. Yeah. So Copilot Daily. I almost said Cortana Daily. I do struggle with this. We could call it Clippy Daily. Doesn't matter. But Copilot Daily is, every day you get up and there's a summary of news and weather and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. You can have it read out loud like you would do with a device, perhaps, or an Echo device, I guess. And that is rolling out now. Apparently in the US and UK, more countries, personalization options are coming, but haven't seen it. Copilot Voice, it's just the same stuff we see on all of these things right now. You can choose from different voices. If you set up a new iPhone, you got to choose a voice for Siri, including men voices, which I have to say is a little weird for something called Siri.
I've had 3 different cases now where people have sent me a podcast generated by AI where the male voice sounds like me. Interesting.
That's the Notebook LLM or Notebook LLM.
That's one of them.
It's pretty wild. They really do sound like podcasters.
Yeah,
with all the ums and
It's
very strange.
It's
my ums are all natural and possibly caused by something that's wrong with my brain. So
in their case, it's exactly the same thing. They're
that's right.
Calculate in the background.
Yeah, crap in, crap out. That's the AI model. Personalized Discover feed, they can't seem to get over. I don't want to even discuss that. More Microsoft Edge integration, right? We know that Copilot is available as a pane in the browser as well, and that's a way you can use it on the Mac or even Linux.
Can I use that as a title if I spell it PAIN?
Yeah, you could say the pane is a pane.
Pane in the browser.
And then these curious ones, I guess there's a couple. So Think Deeper, this is an experimental feature. So this is another new thing. They're going to keep these disabled by default, but you can go in and turn it on if you want. Now this one actually requires...
I know what that is. That's ChatGPT 4.01, right? That's the reasoning ChatGPT that thinks it's slow, but it can supposedly
So this one is, you have to be paying for Copilot Pro. Yeah. And it will answer complex questions.
Yeah, that's an OpenAI thing. Yeah, it's a new model from OpenAI.
Well, no, it's a completely new Microsoft thing. I don't know why.
I'm sorry. Did I say?
Yeah, it's hard to overstate how reliant they are on OpenAI. Anyway, limited number of.
Well, as far as I can tell, it's just relabeled OpenAI. There's nothing. Is Microsoft adding anything to Copilot?
They put a Mercury sticker on it. I don't know why you don't understand it. It's something completely different. Yeah. It will be available in, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, US, right? But the big one here, and this is one maybe we should try to digest a little bit, is Copilot Vision. This is also experimental, so it's off by default. If you turn it on, if you thought Recall was a nightmare, so this will scan everything you do in real time, and it will offer you suggestions based on the context of what it sees. Now, they've learned something from Recall, right? This thing is only alive while you're in the context of the thing. It disappears. Nothing is ever saved anywhere. It goes away immediately. There's no history. There's no anything like that. It's primarily, from what I can tell, really for the web, right? You're on a computer and you're looking at something on the web, and it's supposed to not work with paywalled content, sensitive content. I don't know how it would know. I know. Whatever that means. There's all right. This is one of those things. Like, I feel like I need to experience this before I can speak intelligently about it, which frankly should be true of everything. But limited number of Copilot Pro subscribers in the US only, so it's going to be a really limited drip kind of a rollout. But this is like,
what's up with the regional filters? This is interesting. Like, they clearly are afraid of the law. And even if it's restricted in the US, I bet you it's state-based. Like, I'll bet you California doesn't get it.
Look, among the many valid complaints about AI of any kind is the fact that in order to train the models to the scale and scope they need to, they have to steal content, basically. They're scraping content, right? So obviously you don't want to go after paywall content. It may literally be as simple as, is the URL nytimes.com or whatever
basically sorting the URLs by quality of their legal team.
Mm-hmm. It may literally be that dumb, or that simple, maybe is the better way to say it. So I don't know. I guess what I appreciate about this is just that they this time are acknowledging that maybe people won't trust this.
Yeah.
With
this might
Recall.
make you uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. So
Steve Gibson yesterday did a big segment on that write-up from the blog post from, who was it? The Recall blog post.
The guy from Microsoft, David Wilson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And went through it step by step. And verdict was perfect. Good job. What was that first thing that they offered?
Because it was actually, well, I'm going to tell you in a second because we're going to get to that. It was exactly the same thing. That's what it was. Yeah. The problem was they didn't. We're going to get to this because, in fact, I'm sort of getting to it right now. This is actually what I meant. So there are changes to that's Copilot. No, sorry, that's Recall, which is a feature of Copilot Plus PC, but an AI feature on your Windows computer, right? There are two substantive changes that have happened since they first announced it. One is they made it opt-in, right, instead of optional. This is a squirrely word that someone said to me explicitly was opt-in. It was in fact opt-out. So that's garbage. But they also addressed the other big complaint from critics, which is that you can uninstall it. So
that's new, isn't it?
Yeah, that's new. That's what I mean. Those are the two big changes. But as far as all the technical diagrams, and we're doing this and Windows Hello ESS and encryption and blah, that was already there. You can go back and find it all in the original post, which I referenced back in June when everyone's complaining.
So all they've done is modified the installer.
I mean, look, they did a security review with a third party just to make sure that what they believe was true. They also said that because of the Secure Future initiative that they have, the new trustworthy computing thing, that it has to undergo an internal audit along those lines. Mm-hmm. They did that before May, by the way, and it passed then. A lot of this is just PR control.
It's security theater.
Yeah. Well, look, the security was always real.
Right.
The bit where the user is always in control, sort of. I mean, opt-in versus opt-out is important. Mm-hmm. It really is. Like that's, and this is why.
So so-called enhanced sign-in security architecture is exactly what they talked about in the beginning?
Yes, this has been. I wrote an article about this in May or June. I explained what this was. This is when everyone's like, oh, these guys pull it out and they did this. Yeah, they didn't have Windows Hello ESS. You can't even use this unless you have it. Oh, I should say, sorry, there was a third change since we're on this topic. they also changed the code so that you can't run this on a non-Copilot Plus PC. So that instance where those, security researchers were ripping the code out of the Insider program and putting it on the normal PCs and then reporting that it was unsafe, they're not going to let you do that anymore. So if you want to see if it's unsafe or not, you have to use an actual qualified, certified Copilot Plus PC.
Still sounds like all they've done is update the installer.
Look, I
Well, they have this new dialogue.
I love that you make
This
me
is-
not look cynical. Like
This is new, right? This installer and the description is new.
The picture is new. Yeah.
The picture is new.
Yeah. I mean, I can't actually read it on your screen there, but
It's kind of hard to read.
look, functionally, nothing has really changed. And fundamentally, I still, this is a very contrarian view, unfortunately, although.
But the point being, nothing needed to change. They just needed to actually explain how it was going to work.
So it's really interesting. I mean, here's Steve Gibson, who, is paying attention.
Yeah.
Really thought this was all new.
No, I know. They're presenting it as all new. Yeah. Yep. I know.
And who was a very skeptical. He says, I'm still not going to use it, but he was very skeptical about it. He says, oh, good, they've solved this with the VBS enclaves and the
VBS enclave literally is in the original post. I will just look, when I defended this and everyone said I was an insane person, I feel like I was the only one paying attention because this stuff was there.
Okay.
You can go see it for yourself. I'm not making it up. It's there. And I wrote about it. You can go see what I wrote about it back in May and June. So this is, like I said, not really new, but it doesn't mean they haven't made changes. Look, there could have been changes under the hood. They could have enhanced things or whatever. Actually, like, for example, this one I don't know for sure, but I'm trending in a certain direction, which is they talk about how with Windows Hello ESS, which is just, Windows Hello, so it's facial or fingerprint recognition. Anytime you engage with recall, it has to scan you that time. It's similar to when you get a 2FA notification Microsoft Authenticator app. There's no time limit where it doesn't have to do that. Every time you have to authenticate yourself.
Right.
It's doing that. Now, is that new? That one I actually don't know for sure, but it's not new, right? Because that is how Windows Hello ESS works, right? That's anytime you're crossing this kind of security boundary, you have to make sure it's you. And so I don't, that one I have to put an asterisk. I actually don't know because they never explicitly discussed it. And I just don't know if that's how it worked or not. That may be new, but fundamentally, this is the same thing they were talking about in June. The difference is they blissfully acted like everyone trusted them and would love this and I told this story that day, sitting in the audience, Yusuf Mehdi, like, oh boy. I mean, I know my audience. I know how they're going to react.
Yeah.
The thing that is weird about this to me is the overreaction, if you will, or that's not fair. The reaction to it was far more visceral and negative than even I imagined. Like I thought I could, foresee how this was going to go, and I was off by an order of magnitude. People freaked out over this. So look, I'm excited to try this. I want to see what it's like.
the single big change is you can uninstall it, right? That is a big change.
Well, opt out. So you're not automatically opted into it when you
They
sign
got rid of
into
negative optioning.
But you can also remove it.
You can actually
right?
remove it. That's
not that means anything. Right?
Well,
all you could say is it deleted the installer. Like, how would you know?
Right.
People said, I want IE off my machine, and so I deleted the icon.
And then the whole internet went down with you. Great, smart move there.
Yeah,
Grandma. No, but we'll see. The one thing I always said, even when I was defending this back in May or June or whatever it was look, it's Microsoft. I mean, we still have to see this thing in the real world, right? So
everybody was very sure it was bad and had never actually seen it.
Right. So those same people and others that maybe I trust a little bit more will test this now on real computers, and we will see. I can't claim that it's somehow perfect. It's going to work, but based on the way they describe it, and it looks like they've done the right thing.
I want a real expert at it on a Copilot PC saying, breach this thing, break it. I want you to break it.
That's right.
Show us something real.
So they did do that with it. They won't name the company, but the company did try to hack into this thing, and they weren't able to do so.
That's good.
Yeah.
I wish they'd name them, but okay.
Well, maybe they will. Maybe this will come out eventually. Maybe they want it to be out first, and then that will be the time for that discussion. It's kind of hard to say. So
life will be easier if there's a whole bunch of people hooked on it saying, I don't care what the security is. I want this. This thing's awesome. I can't live without it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's what Microsoft's hoping, because
I think that exactly
if
right.
it is secure, then it is going to be a really useful thing.
Yes.
It's going to be a very handy thing.
I'm afraid it'll be really useful even if it isn't secure.
Well,
Yes.
and
It's
this is
just
a problem,
dangerous.
because if it isn't secure, the first time somebody gets into it and it becomes a big issue, there's a breach, it's going to be a big deal. And Microsoft's going to have egg on its face.
Somebody
so it damn
will
better
make
be
it a big
secure.
deal. But the average mortal does not care less. It's disturbing to me that they're not offering this at the corporate level, because there are plenty of corporate organizations who would be all over this.
I think we're going to get there. They for all of the craziness around Microsoft and AI over the past year and a half or whatever, they've really gone after this in a conservative way. And it may be as simple as, it's just early. We just did it. It's probably limited in many ways. They were intending for this entire summer now into the time frame we're now for it to be in preview and testing, and it wasn't going to be.
Yeah. And only available on the Copilot Plus machines, but
which
only
is
the
like
Snapdragon machines. Like, it was a very narrow sect of the market.
It's so narrow, it's not even measurable.
Yeah.
That's the problem. No, it really isn't. That's the thing. That's one of the important points. Even if everything...
Well, it almost makes me wonder if they didn't want this deal to happen while they were in the exclusivity period.
Okay.
Like, when it blew up, that became useful for them to go, we should just wait.
This really undermined that launch, though. I don't think this was...
I don't disagree.
Is it
I bet
possible
once it
there
went
were-
off, they found an upside.
Is it possible there were warring factions within Microsoft?
There
People
always
who-
are.
Yeah,
There
was
always
somebody-
are. Well,
there was a group
okay,
that
but-
really wanted this, and there was a group that said, "Are you kidding? This is a terrible
No,
idea."
the thing you're describing is the type of conversation one has around like OpenAI and is this new model ready, and are we moving too fast, and is this thing going to take over the earth? It's like this existential thing. The recall stuff isn't exactly like that, because it's local to a machine. It's protected by, VBS Enclave, all the stuff that was already there. Anyway, it's encrypted. It's protected by Windows Hello OS. It's
in
not,
the early, people who cracked it were saying it isn't encrypted. Is that just because they weren't using it on a Copilot Plus PC?
They were not using it on a Windows
Okay.
Copilot Plus PC. Yes, that's
So if you use it where it's intended to be used, it's fully encrypted and
Yes.
not.
This is
open
like
to
so
anybody.
one of the things that those guys said was, I was able to log into a different account on the same
Right.
machine
And see
browse the disk and access it. Right. Which can't happen if it's encrypted. So it doesn't matter if you have an admin account or whatever. You can't do it. You can't, as the owner of a company that deployed this PC to someone, see it. There's no way to see it unless you're you. That's
Okay.
always been the case.
Right.
And I don't know. I can't. The argument over this makes me sad, because this is where you see. Well, when CrowdStrike happened, there was this knee-jerk reaction that this was Microsoft's fault. Now, that type of thing is deserved to some degree. It's the burden Microsoft has to bear. But okay, what happened. So I think when this type of thing happens, and Microsoft did have that VM thing out that was out in the world, and they got hacked, and what happened. That's bad. And then this thing comes along, and they're like, "Are you serious?" And then people say, "Oh, I put it on a computer, and I got into it immediately." It's like, of course, it's Microsoft. This is why them standing up on a stage and introducing this feature so gleefully, like it was something everyone would want, which, like Richard kind of said, I guess, is something everyone statistically probably does want. Most people. And ignoring the security privacy aspect of it, that David Weston post that you were referencing is what should have been out that day.
Absolutely, 100%.
And it is irresponsible that they didn't do that. So lesson learned, I guess. But Microsoft with security is like TSA, right? They're always fighting the last battle. So they solved the problem they created for themselves in May. Great, But you got to start being proactive here, guys. And I should say, I'm sorry. So they have. So this feature that we were talking about but have forgotten about now, the Copilot Vision, they actually detail how this thing is secure in great detail and nice, right? That shows you that they did learn from recall. And by the way, it's not that I don't want to give them too much credit. This thing is so much like recall at sort of a weird high level that, anyone would have seen this. Like they should have. This is the right thing to do. But they literally list through all the ways they are trying to make this thing secure and private, right? And I think that's really smart because you can't hear something like this and not have that same trigger warning. Like, are you kidding me?
No,
you're doing another one of these things.
Yeah, it's got an uncanny valley effect. It just trips you every time.
There's a feature that came on the new Pixels that's just called Pixel Screenshot, and the idea is that we all do this, I bet. My wife and I do this all the time, so I assume it's fairly standard for people. You're browsing, you see something, you're like, I want to remember this. And you're like, I'll take a screenshot. You're like, it goes in, and then you never see it again, whatever. So now there's this.
Goodness knows. Eventually you run out of space and you delete.
Yep. And you're like, well, how come I can't store any photos?
Yeah.
So Pixel Screenshot will look at the screenshots you take with your permission. You have to give it permission, right? It's Google. It's not like they've ever done anything bad. And it will do the text recognition and image recognition, it will do all this stuff, and it creates metadata so that later you can go into that app and say, I was shopping for a red sweater, whatever stupid example. And it's like, yeah, we got red sweater, and here we have that metadata because we created it the day you made the screenshot. That feature is a super limited and almost like stupidly simple version of Recall, right? Because Recall, the way Recall works is it's automatic. As you're doing things on your computer, it's
taking
capturing
screenshots
these
all the time.
Yep, and that's actually far more valuable, right? I don't always remember to take the screenshot or know to take the screenshot or even know how to take the screenshot, I guess, depending on who you are. So this requires you to explicitly take a screenshot. So the kind of knee-jerk reaction type people who didn't like Recall will look at this and say, oh, there you go. That's what they should have done. This one makes sense. Whereas I look at that and say, I'm never going to use this because well, maybe not never, but it is so much less useful because you're doing the work.
Yeah.
You know?
You're still taking the shots.
I want this thing working
Which is
on my
why
behalf.
people are comfortable with it, because it's like, if I don't want it to happen, don't take the picture.
Yep.
But,
I don't know, like maybe there's an answer here that's in the middle where you do both and you give the person the option, and I don't know. But Microsoft went the way they went, and we'll see. We'll let the cards fall where they may. I think it's going to be a game of 52 pickup.
It's been talked about in the Discord or in the combined channel here about what happens when the lawyers learn about this. Like,
because of discovery, you mean?
Yeah,
like,
when your machine gets seized.
Yeah,
right.
Well, they have to compel you to unlock it.
Well, that's right. That's an interesting
that,
aspect. And now, or they're going to come at Microsoft to say, unlock this for us,
and they can't.
Microsoft can't.
They can't.
Which is the really correct thing for Microsoft to do, is to literally be unable.
Right.
That's exactly right. Now, this is, Apple does this sort of thing. This comes up with Apple.
This is
a lot.
the famous story of Apple, refusing to.
Yeah. Well, in that case, they could get into it. That's the problem. But in this case, literally, Microsoft cannot.
No, and it's the smart thing for these companies to do.
Yeah,
if you're going to make it secure, leave yourself literally no ability.
And just
because
so
actually,
you can say, sorry, I can't do it.
Cannot.
Yeah.
We're looking for some kind of a PC buy boom thing to happen. Sales are going to go. And if we can just get the Mexican cartel to buy Copilot Plus PCs, we're going to be all set. So I don't know.
I mean, as much as you make fun, like, do not underestimate how well U.S. intelligence has done compromising computers of their opposition for a long time.
Yeah.
I think all of our eyes were opened when the pagers exploded.
That's an interesting one. That's Mossad, but
but it just shows. I mean,
but this is the right.
The capabilities are there.
Yeah, the U.S. knew the entire order of battle of the Russians invading Ukraine. Even the Ukrainians didn't believe it, and the U.S. had them down to the minute. Yeah. Point your gun that way.
There are these. It's going to start tomorrow. I mean, they were saying.
We don't talk about how good the U.S. intelligence actually is. It's so good they don't have to brag.
Right.
So on that note, if I didn't mention this, the NSA has started a podcast.
I love everything about this.
Yeah. It is fantastic.
Does it sound like Richard Campbell's voice?
The first episode, actually it does, oddly. The first episode is about Osama bin Laden, and it includes someone who a current
is
and a
NSA
former.
Or CIA? I think it's the CIA. Actually.
No, it's NSA.
Okay, it's NSA.
Yeah, it's worth looking into it. And the NSA, not a secret agency or whatever the fake acronym is. So it's like not a whatever.
Not a secret agency.
Not a secret podcast is the name of the podcast.
Is it?
I love it.
Yeah.
No such podcast.
No such podcast. Excuse me. There you go.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. It's worth
no
listening.
such agency, no such podcast.
There you go. That's it.
I
love that they
as
make
a-
fun of themselves. That's the best.
Yes,
Yep.
that's smart.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get a lot of marketing out of these guys. No. So it's kind of interesting. I think it's good.
AI and the future of national security.
Well, these are the folks who are like, hey, you need to start in earnest moving away from prime key based encryption,
Right.
Which is just an implication of we know what to do about it.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Did you see? I was so happy. NIST finally updated their recommendations on changing your passwords regularly. They said,
they
in
say?
fact, don't
Right.
require password changes, and you will no longer get certification if you do.
So that's funny. When I started
Hallelujah.
Thurrott.com in 2015, one of the first, I wrote a bunch of kind of back to basics type articles. I introduced my friend Sean Doobie, who also used to write at the Windows IT Pro, about this identity expert. And he gave me this exact advice. He said, changing passwords, like, why?
It's the worst. It's a terrible idea.
People think this is like a sanitary thing, like every 6 months or whatever you get it. It's like, no, you don't change your password.
No.
It's just,
In fact, the guy who wrote that recommendation in the original NIST documentation 20 or 30 years ago, NIST said in this most recent thing,
Yeah.
we didn't really understand security that well.
No,
it was all new. And the
Yep.
guy who wrote it recanted it some years later saying,
Right.
I just made that up and it was wrong.
And he created more problems.
It
than
falls.
solved.
There's a category of things that just sound right, and you're like, yeah, that makes
Change
sense.
it
You know,
every 6 months.
Yeah, you're like, yeah,
But
no,
there are
no one
so
would
many
question
companies,
Yeah.
including, by the way, my old company, iHeartMedia, that and I only logged in every few months. So every
And they
time
would
I
make you
logged in,
change
I
it,
needed
yes.
a new password.
I know it's crazy.
It was terrible.
Yep, it's a terrible experience, but it's also really dangerous. And just whatever. Anyway.
Hallelujah! They finally backed down. I'm sorry, that was a discretion.
It's a good
good
point.
digression. And so, and the real
Okay, that's
That and the NSA podcast. Two.
just
keep
little
both brilliant.
random stuff. So we kind of got through the new Copilot stuff. So this chatbot is turning into Cortana, whatever.
Yep.
Great.
Bit by bit.
And then on the Copilot Plus PC thing, now remember, these are today all Snapdragon X computers, soon to be Lunar Lake and Zen 5 based PCs.
So they won't always require Snapdragon. They will
Right.
run on Intel.
Yeah, as I think that's coming. Is it November? They said. I think for the other machines, I think so.
Does anybody have Lunar Lake yet?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Is it as impressive as?
So here's how Lunar Lake has fallen out. And the Lunar Lake is the result of competitive pressures on
Yeah.
Intel, obviously. So
Which has
it's not-
always been good for Intel.
It's always been good for everybody, actually. Microsoft too, right? But in this case, they've kind of changed the way that these things come out. So Lunar Lake is specifically the U series mobile chips. It's not the mobile chips; it's the U series, right?
Right.
So there will be, I think it's Arrow Lake is the next one, which will include desktop and higher end like H series mobile processors as well, and they'll be a little bit different. And then they're going to rev that again with what XXX Lake, whatever the names are, pretty rapidly after that. So the first. I love the Lunar Lake thing. I don't have one. I don't have one, so I'll say that, but I will. And what I've heard from everybody is this is like the anti-Intel chip. This is Intel's apology. It is the thing they should have done 10 years ago.
Right.
So it's low, it's super high efficiency. The place where it doesn't fall apart, but the place where it actually falls short of its predecessors is just basic CPU performance, right?
Right.
But GPU up dramatically, NPU obviously dramatically. Integrated RAM, we all do that. This is the standard SoC design these days, and a bunch of other things that are on the chip, related to communications and so forth. Intel has this kind of unique design where, because it's this temporary condition where they can't manufacture these, I want to say probably 4 nanometer, whatever the design is. So the base package of the chip is actually manufactured by TSMC.
They can't do 10 nanometer.
And then Intel super glues them together and they make a chip out of it. So it's the right chip for mobile PCs. It's the right chip for it's not for high-end gamers. It's not for people who need workstations or scientists or programmers or whatever. It's literally addressing that thing that Intel has frankly just kind of ignored for the most part for a very, very long time. So I love that they led with it. And I think AMD is going to come out ahead in just basically raw CPU performance. Battery life is kind of up in the air. I can tell you this thing that I'm on now has pretty much settled in around 8 hours and 45 minutes on average of battery life.
There's a great debate on that the AMD chip design versus the Intel chip design, because the AMD pipeline is quite short. So they're sort of counting on the fact that most instructions simply don't need the longer pipeline. And when they do get the longer instructions, which they do support, they actually run them quite slowly in comparison. Where Intel has the long pipeline, is great with the long instruction sets, but you have to get on a long pipeline with a short instruction or not.
Yeah, Intel, got rid of hyperthreading infamously,
right?
Although
created another problem.
Yeah, but they're all trying to optimize for almost the same thing, right? They're all placing a bet on we're going to be a little slow here, but the overall experience is going to be great. And I think in both cases it is. And I would strongly argue, and it has for a long time, that CPUs were unnecessarily fast. Yeah, they're mostly waiting on memory anyway. That's right. So interesting. So, we'll see again. It's Intel. I mean, hopefully there won't be reliability issues, et cetera, but this is all looking pretty good. So whatever the time, I can't believe I can't remember this, but October or November, if you have a Lunar Lake or Zen 5 based PC, you will get those Copilot Plus PC features. The things that launched back in May with the Snapdragon, June, with the Snapdragon computers. In October, Snapdragon people will be able to test in the Insider program, meaning you'll have to join some, a channel, they haven't said yet, but whatever it is, to get Recall in preview. In November, you'll be able to do that on the other machines as well. And then they've announced these other new features. And these two have their own sort of schedule, but I believe they're being kind of vague on this. And so we don't know exactly when this stuff's going to hit. Some of this stuff is interesting. I don't know. I love this name so much I could cry because it's so Microsoft. Click to do.
What?
So click to do. I know. Could you just have called it? Just call it Clippy to do, would you? What is this? Click to do.
What can I do for you?
So click to do is their attempt at doing context-aware AI something, right? You click on an image and it's like, oh, did you want to?
It's the same thing as Google's you circle an image.
Yes, that's circle to search. Exactly right.
Circle to search, but you don't circle. You just click to do.
You click to do. Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's not a trash can like the Mac, Leo. It's a recycle bin. It's completely different and free of whatever intellectual property it is you think you own. The big one I'm interested in, though, because to me this is kind of the holy grail of AI potentially, is the search experience in File Explorer, right? So, we talked about this, I think, as recently as last week, this notion that Microsoft for years was working on this database-backed file system. Never really got it to work. We've been using indexing forever. It's not great. Sometimes you can search from Start, or you can search from File Explorer, and one of the two will work better than the other. Sometimes they just don't work. And I often find myself going to OneDrive.com to find things because that experience can be so terrible. So they're going to add natural language prompts to File Explorer.
Oh, wow.
Get off of the file name thing and sort of do a recall type thing where you're thinking, like, I worked on a document, it had whatever, just metadata really, but it had whatever content. And then they're going to expand this to window search, meaning
this has been the holy grail for so long.
Yeah, forever.
Computers
and I often remember a key phrase from a document, right? Like some line I used.
Well,
and you don't know if it's in a doc or in an Excel or whatever. Like, I don't care. It's like, I use this phrase. Show me all the things that have this phrase.
Yeah, so this is bad enough for just a normal person, right? But I have 30 years of archives. I probably write 10,000s of words a week. And I know I wrote about this.
You should turn it into a podcast.
Nobody listens to those. It's not a thing.
It's an oral telling of my archives. Which technically this has been since 2006. But
yes,
I need this kind of thing, and I look to see where it might appear. Copilot for OneDrive might be one of those places, right?
Right.
This might be, maybe we'll see. I need for something good here.
It's funny how long we've been trying to do this.
I know. Well, listen, one of the greatest moments ever, and it was a real negative for Microsoft, was when Apple did a WWDC, and they had that, I don't remember his name, that French guy who was running Mac OS 10 at the time. It's a nut job. Yeah, and he would just crap all over them, and how they were copying Mac and Vista and Longhorn, whatever. But they did actually, no, I'm sorry. This was Steve Jobs who did this one. They were talking, I'm sorry. Let me step back. It was Tiger, and they said, oh, Microsoft's working on this Longhorn search thing. It's like, we do search in iTunes. We could just do that. And then he did all these instant searches right from the Finder, and it was like, oh, kill me now, please. Like, seriously, nice. They just did it, and they didn't use any advanced computer science, to create a platform. They were just like, they just did it.
It might have looked good then, but Apple is not notoriously good at search, I must say.
Search is a hard problem.
It's very. It turns out to be really hard.
Yeah.
But, this is what we want. We want to be able to hum a song into our phone and say, what is that song again?
Right.
The reason... Yeah, so the reason file search is hard is because for it to work properly, the files need to have proper metadata.
Right.
And it's hard. And anyone, look, every one of us has probably at one point or another said, all right, when I import from my camera, I'm gonna say this is Paris, this is Paul, this is Stephanie, and you do that for about 2 seconds, and you give up on it.
Yeah.
And then later you search for a picture of Paul in Paris.
This is Mary Jo giving Stephanie the middle finger.
No, she was giving me the middle finger. She was Stephanie.
It looks like, I hate to tell you,
that's what it looks like.
All right. Well. And anywho, this is like you said, it is the holy grail.
Hence the difficulty, right?
Okay. But this is where the machine learning comes into play, is that it can figure out the metadata for it.
This is the holy grail. It analyzes the content. And whether it makes metadata or not, I guess, is sort of beside the point. I guess it would almost have to, right?
Make just to save resources.
That's what Google Photos does, for instance.
Yes.
So that you don't have to write that in.
That's right. So it's a good idea. I feel like it's going to be solved. I need it like yesterday, but I keep waiting for that to happen.
But it is, it's arguably the best use of this because it is a generalized case.
Yep.
Right? Yep. That this generalized language model that understands our world would work very well for generating metadata for whatever.
I hate to interrupt this fabulous conversation, but I better get an ad in now because we have 4 and the show is already an hour and a half in, and
Let's do another one.
Let's do another one. What do you say?
Well, all right.
So whatever thoughts you had, hold them, and we will get to those in moments. You're watching Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. So glad you're here. Our show today brought to you by 1Password. I know you know that name, but they have a new thing that is so cool. You're going to need it. It's called Extended Access Management. Now, this is for business. Well, let me ask you a question. Do your end users always work, all the time on company-owned devices? They never bring their phones or their laptops in. They always use IT-approved apps. They've never got Plex running in the background. Oh, yeah, right. So, let's be real, right? How do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on unmanaged devices using unapproved apps, BYOD, et cetera, et cetera? 1Password has the answer. Extended Access Management. And your ears should perk up at that because this really does solve something that's going on in the real world. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device. It solves problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. You can't put MDM on a contractor's computer. Try and get MDM on my phone. Think of it this way. Your company's security is like the quadrangle of a college campus. Beautiful lawn, nice brick paths leading from ivy-covered building to ivy-covered building, right? Those are the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, the managed employee identities. But they're not the real world because there's also on every college quadrangle those paths people actually use, the mud shortcuts worn through the grass, this straightest line from building A to building B. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities like contractors. And most security tools just pretend they don't exist. They said, oh, yeah, you have brick paths. Yeah, well, we can handle that. They work only on the nice paved areas and the nice buildings. But a lot of security problems, you know where they happen, on the shortcuts on the BYOD devices. on the unmanaged apps. So that's why you need 1Password Extended Access Management. It's the first security solution that brings all these unmanaged devices, apps, and identities under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. It's security for the way people actually work today. Now generally available to companies that use Okta or Microsoft Entra for authentication, and in beta for Google Workspace customers. So pretty much everybody's going to be able to use this. I think you need to check it out. It kind of fills in that missing piece. 1password.com/Windows Weekly. That's the number 1, PASSWORD.com, 1password.com. And don't forget the /Windows Weekly so they know you heard it here. Thank you, 1Password, for supporting Windows Weekly, and Paul and Richard and the work they're doing here. And thank you for supporting Windows Weekly by using that special address so they know you saw it here.
You know that muddy path thing? A UX guy once told me it's called an affordance.
Affordance.
An affordance.
An affordance.
Yes, the actual emergent path.
That's what I say when I can afford to go to a restaurant. It's an affordance.
That's an
You can't afford an affordance. You can't handle the affordance.
I'm having an affordance. I need to run to the men's room.
All right. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No,
Continue on. Pretend I don't. In fact, watch this. Boom. I'm gone.
Wow.
I'm gone.
Okay. So also coming to Copilot Plus PCs is a super resolution feature in the Photos app. This will be delivered via a Microsoft Store update, right? So uses the NPU in the computer to turn, low quality, low resolution images into high quality, high resolution images. Yep. Up to 8x, supposedly. I guess we'll see.
Making people look better than they really do.
Yeah. Well, we all have those. You get, for some reason, you have like one copy of a photo and it's 1200 by 600 instead of, and it's like, okay, so I'm eager to try this if it works. Great.
I ended up remaking a bunch of the old Microsoft conference logos from like 2000 stuff because they were only 320 by 200.
This is,
I literally paid a designer to remake it at 1080p.
I know there are things like this, but there were videos that, from the early days that are, 320 by 240 basically. Yeah. And I got it. Could we get it to even 720? I mean,
everybody wants an HD version of Santa versus Frosty, like clearly.
I was thinking of like an early Bill Gates video or something. Yeah. I mean that too. But so and then Microsoft Paint, which on Copilot Plus PCs today has a co-create feature, right? In addition to the other stuff,
just the language they're using.
I know
it's so anthropomorphic.
Yeah, but check this one out: generative fill and generative erase capabilities. So generative erase obviously is like Magic Eraser, like Google has and Apple's about to have, and Apple Intelligence,
something
whatever.
Stalin specialized in back in the day.
Generative fill is a new feature in the Photos app on the new Pixels, where you have I'll just make it a simple example. You have like a square photo, but you want it to be widescreen, and it fills in what it feels like should be there.
Sides, yeah.
The one that's in the Pixel is surprisingly good. Like it's
by the way, Pixel 9.
Yeah. Oh, you got one? Did you get it?
I got it. And sent to it came with a box to send the old phone away,
and it didn't fit in because it was too.
It's just swelling too far. No, I got it in there, and it's like now it's the mail. It's the post office
mail's problem.
Yeah, it's out of here.
They're like, is this Ted Kaczynski? Because we got your phone, and
I didn't ask for the trade in. I think they were only offering $100 anyway. It's like it's not going to make any difference.
Oh, okay, right. That's right.
Yeah. It's a 6, a slightly swollen 6.
Yeah. And that's actually it for the new features. Although Microsoft kind of highlighted some new apps, from third parties that are now running natively on ARM. There's nothing in here that's actually new to me, but InDesign, Illustrator, and Premiere from Adobe, LibreOffice, 1Password, ExpressVPN, and there's another VPN that they're not mentioning here, but all the good, all the good browsers. Most of the browsers. Arc is on there,
right?
And I'm sorry, Arc is. Arc is there. Yeah, Arc's there. Google Drive is coming soon. Vegas Pro is coming soon. Fantastical, whatever that is coming soon, and some other things like that. So good.
Okay,
so that's good. We already talked about the trust stuff behind the Copilot Vision, and so there's no reason to beat that to death.
Yeah.
And we also we jumped into the recall stuff. So that just leaves us with one final thing. This is kind of a related feature, or a related story rather. I went to a Google event I guess now it might have been, no, it was a week ago. Feels like it was like an eternity ago. Because a lot of travel all of a sudden. So the new features coming to Chromebook Plus. It's like, yeah, who cares? But no, something very interesting is happening. Starting with a new version of the Samsung Galaxy Chromebook, which is now a Chromebook Plus device, big, 15-inch, really thin. If you're familiar with these designs, like beautiful laptop.
Yeah, beautiful. Other than they don't run any software, they're awesome.
Yep, and that's why and the battery life is fantastic. For that reason as well,
especially because you don't run any software on it. Right?
So they're changing the keyboard for the first time since the original Chromebook.
Tell me they're adding a Copilot key. Tell me they're adding a Copilot.
They are adding a. You're hilarious because that's exactly what they're doing. So when
it's a Gemini key, I presume.
Yeah. Well, they have a different name, but yes.
What's the icon on it?
Yeah. So you're making me lose my train of thought. So it's when they started Chromebook, they looked at the keyboard and said, okay, there's some superfluous things going on here. And one of the things they got rid of was caps lock. And yes, thank you. The caps lock is where they put something originally called the everything key, but now I think they just call it launcher. It just has a circular icon on it. If you tap it, it brings up their version of the start menu.
It's the Windows key.
Yeah.
Basically the version of the Windows key.
Yeah. But they put it where caps lock was, right? So now what they're doing...
didn't cause any problems at all.
Well, it's whatever. But now they're turning into something called the quick insert key. And this is that context sensitive. It will, depending on what you're doing at the time, you hit the thing and it will look at what you're doing and do the right Gemini thing.
Right.
The launcher key has moved to where the Windows key is. And it now is a G, right? The Google G, which is kind of fun. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that obviously...
I saw a Google logo key. I presume it would pull up Google search, but okay.
Yeah. I mean... honestly, you probably could search from there. I'm sure it's just like Start where you can start typing and it would do that. But yeah, in some ways, this design makes a little more sense because the G key, the launcher key, is where the Windows key is, right? So that makes sense to me. And then repurposing this key no one wants for anything would be fine. Using it for this is okay. Like I don't have any quibble with that. But it is interesting that I've spent the past however many months since they first announced it, complaining about this stupid new key.
Yep.
And Google's like, yeah, let's do one of those.
Let's do it. It's so great.
So it's honestly, it's not a horrible idea. It's fine.
Yeah, but the cynical approach still works, right? It's like, what's the worst thing they could do? Make it go Copilot key. All right, let's go there.
We're going to do that. Yeah, it is kind of funny. Okay. Do we need to halt again because of...
No, I think that was... we did the ad break just a touch early, but...
Yeah. All right,
plus
we can move on.
It was also late at the same time.
Yeah. This is a little a catch-all for a couple things, but starting with some Microsoft 360... Well, I don't know if this is 365, whatever it is. So
they really are discontinuing the headset after all of this.
Yeah. So I heard... I just got some inside info on this, and one of the bits I got confirmed something I've been saying for a long time. So it's nice to hear from someone else, which is that when Satya Nadella took over as CEO, he had all the product groups come in one at a time for a mass execution, basically, where they needed to justify their existence in two ways. One is you had to make sense financially as a business and prove that you could. If you didn't now, were you ramping up to that? And also that this business could make sense in this new Microsoft, which was a cloud company, right? You have to make sense in the context of this thing that we are, more globally. Xbox, infamously, Phil Spencer got through somehow. This would have seemed like maybe an obvious one to get rid of, but they're on that strategy now where they have subscription services, a bunch of them. Yeah. They bought a bunch of gaming studios to help bolster the content that they'll offer through there. And this is the way Xbox can make sense as a business, potentially, right? De-emphasize the hardware, eventually maybe get rid of it, but have this ongoing volume licensing style thing.
I don't even think you have to be profitable. What you have to show is cash flow. And so turning into finding a way to make monthly revenue will at least postpone your death, if not actually keep you alive.
Right. So with HoloLens is kind of an interesting case. He was really gung-ho about HoloLens. And to be fair, anyone who sees HoloLens or has experienced it would agree it's incredible technology.
Listen, until ChatGPT came along, this was the future. AR was the future. ChatGPT just changed the course.
Yeah. So the bit I heard was basically that to push this out, there was Microsoft could come up with a few ideas about how this thing might be used, but the strategy was literally, let's just put it out in the world and someone somewhere is going to come up with something.
Alice Kipman did not do that. The correct thing they should have done was publish all the APIs, set it loose on developers, and let them go. And that's how he did. You had to submit a proposal for markets, and he was very particular about where to go.
So, I'm sorry, but the thing I heard was that to get companies excited about it, Microsoft would do demos of their stuff using HoloLens, and they would pay for it. And these things cost $1 million or more each time. And what Nadella said was, look, we're going to do this for 2 years, and then we're going to go back and we're going to charge them for this. And when they did that, not a single partner agreed to pay for it.
Right.
So they were happy to get it for free, but would not pay for it.
They couldn't see the ROI.
Yeah, this coincides with the time period where they were actually getting ready to ship a HoloLens 3. There had started to be rumors about this.
No, there wasn't a rumor. They built it.
No, I know. I mean, what I mean is it was being, people were writing about it, and it was true. But what they came out and said at the time was, we're actually looking for kind of a bigger breakthrough with the hardware.
Yep.
We're going to wait and see how that pans out. But really, what was happening was they just weren't getting buy-in on this. And so
and they got creamed by the US military. The US military completely distracted them with their future warfighter thing. They poured a huge amount of time and energy into it, and then the budgets got slashed. It just suddenly all of that effort was for naught.
I mean, the notion of a person with a rifle running around with a HoloLens is horrifying to me, but I don't know. I'd have to go look at the exact timing and all of this.
To be clear, it's not a person with a rifle; it's a person with a drone.
Okay. Oh, fair enough. Okay. That's okay.
But okay.
I mean, it's better than a person with a gun, I guess.
No, they've got a gun. It's just that.
Let me stop talking about that. I'm saying things that I actually, as I say them, sound terrible to me. I don't mean that. Just stop. It's not what I want.
Yeah.
But my guess here is that there will be third parties that come out with these platforms. Obviously, Meta's one. Meta and Microsoft have partnered on this, bringing Microsoft 365 to that platform. Meta, for a while, remember, was selling or trying to sell its own kind of alternative to Microsoft 365, just like Amazon has tried to foist this kind of thing on the world. And that went nowhere, and they canceled it. And I'm wondering if this isn't part of it. It's like, well, we have this partner building this thing, and if you want this experience, you can get it from them, and maybe we'll build software for it.
Yeah.
We'll see. But it was awesome technology. And there were some good vertical market demos for sure, but it just didn't. It's
never been a consumer device. It's been a vertical device. I've always equated it to the BlackBerry circa 1998, where you needed an army of guys in white lab coats to keep the thing running. And they were expensive as all get out. It's not just that the headset was $3,500. It's that it was $1,000 a month in Azure IoT per headset.
It's not like any consumer company would try to sell a $3,500 headset. Sorry, Apple's doing that right now. But anyway,
how's it going?
Probably not very well. But if it ever took off for whatever reason, and of course Apple, I'm sure, has next gen designs and whatever glasses down the road, but Microsoft, of course, could target that. I mean, it's a very familiar development environment. So if they had to, they could go there. I guess long story short is I'm not surprised this happened. It kind of died the way a lot of Microsoft products die, which is like slowly without a lot of talking, and then it just kind of happens, and everyone feels
it suddenly
bad
becomes apparent to everyone we're wasting time here.
It's just too bad because there were some good ideas there, but
and I don't think it's over. I think they just killed this device. Like they haven't talked about layoffs.
Oh, okay, that's a good point. So, it could be tied to that U.S. Army stuff. Maybe we're going to wait and see what happens there. Who knows?
I think the waiting for another rev of chipsets makes a lot of sense because that was part of the line. But I think also in general, it's the breakthrough piece. And I think you think about the implicit machine learning models that we're building now around marking up documents, identifying the world, like all of that sort of stuff. The headset suddenly becomes the input device for those machine models to serve you.
Yep, that's true.
It's basically a dash cam on your face.
I agree. The thing I keep thinking back to is when Microsoft was first pushing this, and they also had Windows mixed reality headsets for consumers, and they were talking about holograms and basically what we call AR, I guess. Apple came out with something I think it was called AR Kit, and you would have apps on a phone or an iPad that we're not as elegant because you're looking at a screen, but I always use the example: you walk into a museum and there's a dinosaur skeleton, and you hold that thing up and it shows you what the animal would look like. Yeah, it's kind of a neat thing. So it's not the same immersive whatever.
The crazy part was,
but remember, they're building for the Vision Pro. That was they knew what they were going to do.
Yeah. Yep. And it was exactly what you should do, which is you get the API in the hands of devs as soon as possible.
So you have content.
Yeah.
But do you think killing HoloLens should chill Apple's?
Well, they didn't kill HoloLens. They're discontinued the HoloLens 2.
Yeah.
It's dead, Jim.
Which is a 5-year-old device.
Yeah. But they aren't doing a HoloLens 3, are they?
Well, they already built a HoloLens 3. The question is, is this HoloLens 4? What we don't know is next month they announce a new piece of hardware.
I'm going to guess no, because why not just wait on this? Why would you do this now? It's kind of tough timing. Maybe it's associated with the life cycle of whatever version of Windows is underneath it, and that thing is, maybe it's something like that. But
might even be just fiscal budget, fiscal timing. How do you want to report it?
I don't know that killing a product like this, having nothing to sell, and then coming out a year from now with HoloLens 3 or whatever they call it, makes any sense. But. Who knows? Look, maybe if it's glasses, it will make sense. I don't know.
I don't know the answer to it, but it's like,
I don't either.
It is a 5-year-old device. If you're going to get new hardware, you probably should have by now.
So, yeah, that's true. If you're German, I'm going to ask you to cover your ears for a moment. All right.
What do you do?
What are you doing?
There is a regulatory body in Germany that I'm going to butcher its name. It's Bundeskartellamt or something.
I love it.
The good news is they don't even know what you're trying to say, so they don't know.
Fair enough. BK Art A. Anyway, I'm going to just call them Germany's antitrust authority.
Right.
6 months ago, announced they were investigating Microsoft to determine. I got to find this exact language. This is classic. If Microsoft as a whole was somehow of such paramount significance across markets that it would need to be regulated over and above the EU DMA. So they did this for 6 months, and they determined, perhaps unsurprisingly, that yes, Microsoft is that significant. And now they will regulate Microsoft, all of Microsoft, every product and service that they sell, as if it was under the gatekeeper clause of the DMA.
Interesting.
Wow. Flight simulator?
So they're going to, in other words, if you're, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be found guilty of flight simulator, Richard. Obviously, the weird thing about the DMA for the Microsoft guy or whatever is Windows, obviously. What's the other Microsoft product that falls under this? Do you know?
LinkedIn.
What? LinkedIn?
Yeah.
That's because the DMA is a lot about social
media.
Yeah. And I guess how we just choose to define this market, it's kind of the only social media service for careers and things like that, I guess. Right. I don't know. Anyway.
I was just asked by a high school to come and do a talk about LinkedIn with them.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And we are streaming right now on LinkedIn.
Oh, good. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn's fantastic. If you can see me,
and by the way, I love the picture, Paul, that you put in your blog post of the Bundeskartellamt.
Thank you.
What a beautiful building.
I had to use AI to correct this photo to make it look even better than it was originally. There was just all this crap in front of it. It was really strange. So I did generative erase on this and then a little fill.
Wow.
But this is the building.
There is a use for that stuff.
Yeah, it's in Bonn, Germany. And
so
basically, this gives them they enacted a law 3 years ago-ish that gives them the power to do this. And the idea is that we will use we'll look at the DMA as the guide, and we will apply this to other products. So you could maybe picture them looking at Teams or just Office or Bing even or whatever. And even though it doesn't qualify to be regulated under the DMA, they can choose to do so independently. So interesting. It's just interesting. It's we'll see. And they'll do this for 5 years, and then they'll look at it again, and maybe something has changed.
I wonder if they'll do that to other companies like Apple, because many parts of Apple are not big enough.
Yep.
Are not, enough of a percentage of the market to qualify for the DMA.
Yeah. I always wonder about Apple in Europe, because in my experience, and I don't go there as much as I used to, right? But the people I know in Europe, a lot of iPhones, in Western Europe. But really, I feel like the mix of Android and iPhone is more diverse there than it is in the United States.
Android phones.
Yeah. So I maybe there is a case to be made that they're not as dominant or whatever as they are in the United States. I don't really have a good handle on that, but I do wonder about it, because
well, let's say they decide the iPhone is. Obviously, the Mac is not. Mac OS is not. But then they could, under the same strategy, say, well, we're going to keep an eye on Mac OS as well.
Yeah, right. I mean, Mac OS, or Apple has a monopoly on Mac OS. I mean, you could define the market however you want, I guess. It's still millions of.
You definitely should be
whatever.
Apple run other operating systems on Macs. That's
maybe.
A great answer.
Yeah, I mean,
if I'm Microsoft under this circumstance, what do? I think nothing. You wait to see what they bring.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't mean anything.
Microsoft's record here is pretty good. It's better than Apple's. And what I mean by that is, confronted by the GDPR, they said, look, this is going to be hard to implement. It's going to take a little while. We're just going to do it everywhere. It doesn't make sense to maintain two versions of this stuff. We'll just do the right thing everywhere, right? And I like that. Microsoft doesn't always get it right like that. I'm not trying to be overly complimentary there. But if there were, they're not doing it with Windows 11, right? So if you're required by law in the EU to do certain things with Windows 11, to me, you should just do those things everywhere. And they're not doing that. So there's your
and then, I mean, going all the way back to Windows N, right? Like,
yep. Windows 10 never made any sense.
It wasn't a right thing.
This one's for the crazies.
Well, and so is the pulling Teams out of Office.
Yeah, I know.
Right. Although I will tell you that we just renewed all our MVP licenses, and the MVP license for your E5s does not include Teams. Huh. But then they gave you a separate license to go get Teams.
That one Teams was free. I don't understand.
So it is when it's bundled with Office, right? So the Microsoft,
but then the EU demanded it be unbundled from Office.
Well, see, they actually technically didn't demand that. They just said, we'd like you to make some changes, and then Microsoft said, okay, what would you like us to do? We'd like you to make some changes. So Microsoft lowered the price. They didn't like that. That wasn't sufficient. I guess it wasn't enough. They pulled Teams out. They just did it.
Yep.
And they're like, all right, there you go. I'm like, yeah, no, we don't like that either. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be some feeling that this is the rare example of the EU not being very explicit. I feel like they've done a pretty good job about explaining what they want of these companies. But in this one case, they've never explained it, and still till this day have not explained it. So they bent over backwards to prevent any sort of action being taken against them by the European Commission in that case. And it did not work. So I don't know. Oh, boy. All right. So about 10 days ago-ish, Microsoft announced the Office L long-term LTSC, long-term servicing channel version of Office 2024. This is the, in-time version that doesn't get updated all the time, like the Microsoft 365 version.
Do they not want you to use this one either?
They literally do not want you to use this. They are very explicit about that.
Yeah.
We are offering this. Do not buy this. And so they obviously skew it, which honestly is a good play on words on my part, if you know what I'm talking about, to be horrible, right? They on purpose.
It's a little pun. That's good.
Make it as painful as possible to own.
Yep. So for businesses, they have a couple of versions, and now for consumers, they have one version, Office Home. They have one version for small businesses as well, Office Home and Business. Both of them include Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote, which is free anyway. Mm-hmm. The Home and Business includes Outlook plus the right to use the apps for commercial purposes. They're both licensed for only one PC or Mac. And on the well, I mean, obviously Windows 10 and 11 are the only supported versions, so they work on that. They work on the most recent 3 versions of the Mac OS. They require a Microsoft account, which is kind of interesting, and an internet connection. And someone looked into this because they were like, wait a minute, what's happening here? And I guess you have to, it does a heartbeat check every once in a while, just to make sure your license is good or whatever. So it will go into some kind of reduced functionality mode if you're offline for 2 months or whatever. You just got to check in with the home office every once in a while. So same basic features we talked about 10 days ago, that new default Office theme, which isn't that new, but was new a couple of years ago. Open Document 1.4 support, yada, yada, it doesn't matter. It's not very interesting. But, these are the versions that you buy when you don't want to get a subscription. Maybe you're a normal person, you have one computer. See, to me, I look at this, I'm like, I couldn't do this. This is crazy. But I do like the idea of a thing that's not going to bug me to save to OneDrive, because OneDrive is not part of this, right? So could I look at the code somehow and just maybe make that change in the version I do have? I kind of like the idea of that,
Like a certain registry key that Mark Russinovic once found?
I'm convinced there's something. It has to be somewhere. It's controlled somewhere. It's,
What's this? What is this? I didn't hear about this.
So if you so I don't use OneDrive folder backup, right? And I have my own system for doing things. So I like to default save to the desktop. I don't leave anything on my desktop. That's not what that's for. It's just a scratch space, because I write things that are ephemeral.
Yeah.
So
no, that's the best way to use a desktop.
Yeah.
Not like Stephanie does, where everything's there.
Yes. So I will move my things to where I want them. It's still in OneDrive, right? I'm still using the service, right? So, but when you do this it's painful. It's a multi-step process, a very specific configuration. I go into Microsoft Word, tell it I want to save it to the computer, not to OneDrive. Here's the folder. It throws up a banner every time. We could be backing this thing up.
You should save it to OneDrive.
We could autosave. Come on.
do it for you.
On. You could autosave to the desktop. You're just being a jerk, but it just bugs you all the time. So the perpetual version, which they stopped using that language, by the way, but these limited time, whatever they are, one PC versions, perpetual license.
The boxed version.
The boxed version, I assume, is not going to bug you about this, because they can't assume you have OneDrive. So,
I like it.
I like it too. I'd like that. That is appealing to me.
Sure, there's a registry key. We just have to hunt that key.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to
that
find
key
this
down.
out.
But otherwise, it's
I guarantee
identical.
every update resets the key, but whatever.
It's otherwise in every respect identical except for one byte.
I'm gonna. So I will write. That's probably true too. But I will write an app that is kind of a D and certification thing for Windows 11, and part of it's going to be a background service that just runs
resets all those things again.
Well, it doesn't reset. I'm going to look at it and see if anything changed, and when it changes, it's going to pop up and show me, because I need to see. I want to know when and how this stuff changes. That really irritates me.
Great project.
So that will happen. I can't
just keeping snapshots of the reg and then comparing changes to it.
Exactly.
I mean, the problem is that on update, there's going to be thousands of changes.
No, I mean, most people would probably just want it to make those changes every time, not worry about it. I want to see when it happens. It's important to me to figure this out.
You want to know what piece of offensive software.
Yeah.
So you do like a calculator. You have a paper tape.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's personalized, right? So I'm writing it for myself, but anyone could go through the list of things and say, I want this, 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 and this, and someone else might have different ones. So it will compare your configuration with the actual configuration and see if anything changed. Cool. And I think it's going to show. I haven't done it yet, so I'm guessing.
You're going to write it in Visual Basic? What are you going to write in?
No, it's going to be in COBOL. No, it's
Fortran, please.
No, it's going to be a C# app. It's probably going to be WPF, honestly, because it's just easiest for me. I'm just so used to it now. I couldn't do anything else.
After your .NET Notepad.
It is .NET. Yeah, it's .NET. Okay.
Last one. Then a break.
Yes.
Before you do that, let me do a pause.
Last piece for the break.
Yeah,
I see, but okay, go ahead.
It's a goodie.
It's quick. It's just quick. On This Week in Intel is Doomed, Bloomberg
dun dun dun
reported that Arm, the company Arm,
I love everything.
Offered to buy Intel.
Not the whole thing.
Nope.
The product group, which
Just a little bit of it.
The right thing.
Means.
They were offered to buy the right thing.
The chip design part, I guess.
The chip designs.
Not the fabs, just the foundry.
Yeah.
which is what ARM is.
Well, and Qualcomm wants the foundries.
Oh, right.
Well, Qualcomm wants the fabs.
They want the fabs. Maybe we
and
split it
ARM
up.
well, this is the thing this is what happens when a company like this unravels. Is there a home for all the pieces? Like,
I think
for
there is.
ARM to come out publicly and say this now signals to a big private equity firm, we have homes. Let's go cut up the body.
It put it in play, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Intel.
All we need now is Carly Fiorina to run it.
That's
We're
yes.
set.
And I have a blue iPad or what do they call it? An iPod. No one else is going to have it.
But
That's high hopes for
this is
that.
what happens to old companies who can't modernize. Is that
That
in
makes
comes
sense.
the
Do you
PE
think that
firm.
will happen? Any of this will happen?
Just a question of timing. It's comes down to price.
The good
Right.
thing about a breakup like that is you don't have the monopoly issue, right?
No.
Yeah.
It makes it a little easier to get regulatory
Also,
approval, I
And
would
plus,
think.
ARM's a UK company, which the
That's
FTC is going to be a whole lot happier
Yeah.
about.
Well, the fact that it almost doesn't matter what that company is, because I think the chip design part, I think most people are going to say, who cares? Like it's the fab thing they need to keep in the United States. Maybe not.
No, I mean, there's an argument for, what's ITAR here, like what needs to be protected.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you don't create a U.S. subsidiary. Like all of that is trivial. But the bottom line is like the chips need to keep flowing.
Right.
And separating those entities, like there's a strong case for this is what Gerslinger was talking about in the first place. If you separate these entities,
Yep.
you will actually get better Intel chips in the process.
I mean, this was the argument for splitting up Microsoft. What would a Microsoft Office company look like that
If that had to live off of-
targeted other platforms and could do what they wanted? They probably would have gone to the web a lot faster and better with actual offline apps and so forth. So
They were held off of being on the phones for a couple of years because of a certain someone.
okay.
But anyway, I mean, the point here is like, to me, this play is totally all right. The pieces are in place. Like, in comes a large. We've seen the positioning for an activist board member. We've seen someone interested in the fabs. We've seen someone interested in the intellectual property.
Right.
You're ready. You're ready
This
now to
is
go
fascinating.
pull down a few $100 billion and make the moves.
So I just want to warn you, if this does happen, we're going to have to turn this attic into a war room. We're going to do a 24/7 broadcast. We're going to pull people in. This is a huge story. Breaking news. Are you ready? I'll be pulling you both in.
It's the end of an era. I don't know.
It would be, wouldn't it? It's huge.
They're the U.S. Steel
Well, it's
of
gonna
the
be-
chip making markets.
Well, I
or
can see
whatever.
ARM saying it's ARM with Intel inside.
Oh, gross. Ugh. Hey, it's ARM with maybe with
my ARM.
x86 IP inside. Maybe
There you go.
maybe this is the
Well, and therein lies one of the interesting things is a lot of these emulators have been hampered
You know
by
what?
the fact that IBM that Intel's been litigious about it, right? Like,
So-
emulators could get
And there's
dramatically
also
better.
the issue of the cross licensing with AMD, right? Doesn't that
that would have to be preserved.
I think that's
doable.
that will happen.
According to the reg, it technically on any acquisition has to be renegotiated. Those agreements do not survive an acquisition.
Okay, but I feel like that's going to be one, especially if it goes to ARM. This maybe has to be part of
It's
that.
the only
deal.
reason ARM would want them.
Yeah,
right.
But ARM
Probably has
Qualcomm-
cross licensing with AMD as well. I would bet.
Possibly, but
AMD is an ARM licensee.
But the reason that AMD was brought into existence was to provide an alternative supplier. And if you've got ARM able to emulate the instruction set perfectly, there's your alternative supplier.
That's a good point.
So ARM is suing Qualcomm because their x86 emulating Snapdragon X chips are not being, not giving them an extra license fee or whatever it is.
Right.
ARM has its own ideas about PC type designs based on ARM, right? They have their own reference designs. If they could get Intel x86 rights, they would then have something superior and might force Qualcomm to bite, because otherwise their competitors will have it and they'll have some advantage.
All your future computers will be ARM-based emulating x86.
I have to say,
as necessary.
it just popped into my brain, but the thought that ARM might be doing this just to screw over Qualcomm is especially delicious to me.
No, and it totally
And-
makes sense, and it's what good competition looks like. Honestly,
Yeah.
This is interesting.
No.
So you think this might happen?
I think it's unless
Yeah.
a new CEO comes in that can actually right the ship. Intel needs to become what these guys are offering anyway.
Right.
That was what
Right.
Pat Gelsinger was supposed
talking
to
about.
do.
Yeah.
And was planning to do.
And possibly the best way to do it is
Do you
to
think
cut
the
it up
board
for
just
parts.
hasn't given him enough time?
I think he can't move the ship. The ship's
He can't
too
do it.
heavy and
It's too
slow,
big.
right?
You mentioned
one way to. So you have a choice with these ships. You either cut them up or you let them hit an iceberg, like one or the other.
Yeah, neither of those is great. But if
Well,
the
I don't think the U.S.
AMD
government would let that happen, honestly.
But if the AMD
this is-
relicensing had to happen, maybe that's something that is being discussed now and has to happen before we can say, okay, now we're going to. This is
I
the
think
option.
this is where you send a high-level emissary from the government in to say, boys, this is too important to our national security. This is how this is going to come down.
Well, I think from the U.S. government perspective, they're going to say, yeah, we don't care about your stupid IP. You just have to make fabs. So,
No, you kind of need to
remember
make,
the CHIPS
kinda need
Act
the chips.
prevents IP from going to China.
Yeah.
There's
fair
that's also considered a national asset.
I want them saddled with Intel's last generation designs. Why are these phones running so hot? But my phone has a fan. What's happening? That's the perfect thing to happen to China.
14 nanometer or nothing.
Exactly.
No, and
Right.
there's such a good case for they could actually bring. You do have the government emissary who just makes sure that the FTC signs off on it, that these legal constraints are taken care of.
Yeah.
But
I
you
bet you this is
facilitate
happening right
a
now
graceful
behind the scenes.
dismantling.
That's absolutely possible. Yeah. That could be right now.
And that's
It
why you
should.
do these public announcements, right? Like you put that out there to show these pieces are in place. None of this is a surprise.
I think also it's so technical and inside baseball that you're not going to see a lot of coverage of it, and maybe here as the only place.
It's going to be duller
but it's
than
going to
anything.
happen.
Well, I mean, I think everyone has this vague idea that Intel is this thing. I was just reminded of this today because my mother called.
It's U.S. Steel. It's exactly as you said, Richard.
My mother
Paul said
asked.
it.
It's okay.
Paul.
My mother one time, who doesn't understand my job, asked me how Microsoft was doing. I think she might think I work there, and I said, "Oh, they're doing good." And then she said, "What about that other company?" And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, remember there was it was Microsoft, and then there was the other company." And I said, "Apple." She goes, "Yeah, those guys." I'm like, "Yeah, they're doing great.
How are they doing?
They're the biggest company on earth." So,
Paul, is your job secure? Is what I really want to know.
but I think for a lot of people, that's Intel
Microsoft's
too.
the
There's
second biggest one, right?
There's this vague, like they're a thing. Like people might think that
is it
Intel
just our crowd that says Wintel and stuff like that? Is it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
Probably, yeah.
People
But
don't
also,
know.
I mean,
but that's
Wintel
why
was-
Intel had those stickers on all those laptops that said
Yeah,
Intel
That's
inside.
right. That's right, and that probably helps with people. Like that might be the
Yeah,
association.
People are
right?
aware of that.
Yeah.
Well, that mostly Wintel is a term from 2001, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
It's been 20 something years,
Kinda
man.
old.
Hey, Windows is a term from 1985. What's your point? I mean, I don't know.
Wow,
We'll
that's
see.
okay. This will be good.
This is big. I mean, whatever.
Make a
happens,
note of
it's
this.
big. Yeah.
Now, Intel rejected the buyout offer, but
That's
Well, they should. They don't really have a choice until the board tells them otherwise.
right. Or the shareholders, they could go. ARM could make it
Well, then
hostile.
it's just
right?
where-
I was going to
you
say
know.
it's the shareholders that ultimately is going to be the problem because if you want to send every signal you can that you're in control, everything's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're going to be fine. Pay no attention to that
You
giant.
have to
white
present
thing in
a
the-
completed plan, right?
Yeah.
This is really good.
But again, you use these
This is
public
juicy.
pieces to show, okay, this is where the plan came from. We were keep it a secret. It was out there, right? But we had to put all the pieces
This
together.
is juicy. I'm looking forward to. This
Hey, you could
soap
wake up
opera.
any day. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
To-
This could
here's
happen
to an announcement.
tomorrow. It could happen 6 months from now.
We appreciate the
I
help
swear to
we
God,
got
we're
from
going.
the U.S.
We're
government.
going to the. We're going to the. Oh, look at this stock chart. Wait a
You're
minute.
like a news organization that like proactively writes.
Yeah, we want bad news.
An obit for some celebrity.
Yeah, I'm
just so
writing the
you're ready.
obit right now.
Yeah,
Let's
Yeah,
go to
it's
the
like-
1 year
yeah, boy.
thing.
The
Look
two-
at that.
The 2 year
Look at
ones.
that.
Yeah, the
Holy
two-
camole.
Look at is 2 years. What's 2 years like? It's just the
There was a climb until the peak,
Yeah,
early
it was-
2024, and then it has been downhill all year.
Yep.
So what happened at the beginning of the year?
Sure.
People believed I believe Pat Gelsinger is going to make the transition growth, and then this is it's not going to happen. Isn't that interesting?
Yep. It's not great.
Wow. I mean, if you believe that the stock market is the wisdom of the crowds or something, this is.
I don't believe that, but it still establishes the worth of the company matters. You know, I actually wish it was.
Well, this is why it's in play, because
Yeah.
the price is so low. That's why it's in play.
That's right.
Yeah.
It makes it
the
feasible.
sharks are circling, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It makes it feasible to have enough cash to be able to do the maneuvering here.
Wow. I don't normally follow, finance like that because I'm
Of course.
accuse myself from investing in any of these companies, but still,
That's fascinating.
It is. This is like barbarians at the gate.
Yeah,
This is
it's
good.
tough. It's hard. It's not good. You know, every company that was once like big and important, WordPerfect, Ashton Tate, all the companies that Microsoft
Who are
killed.
these companies
I
you
know.
talk of?
That is
Long time
not,
ago.
That is not
Lotus.
What this is more standard oil. This is you split
I
them
think
up
you're right. This
and you
is
get a
U.S.
better
Steel.
entity
This is
for it.
Standard Oil. This is a massive. Wow.
Yeah. You take
Richard,
apart the
this
old
is-
guy because it's not running well.
This
and
is the
make
book you
pieces
should
run
write,
well.
Richard. We finally found your book.
No,
Wow.
please, no. Well, I got enough pressure on the books as it is.
You know, I used to pester Mary Jo to help write me a book. Maybe I should start doing that to you.
Yeah, you probably should.
Oh, yes.
Because writing with you is a pleasure. So
I think that would be great. I'd buy it. Speaking of books, my son's book came out.
Oh yeah, I watched that show. I saw him
very
in
proud of
action.
him.
Yeah, that's
Here
really
it is,
awesome.
Salt Hank, a 5-napkin situation.
It's so great.
He's going to be on in about
great
an hour
cover.
on This Week in Google. We're going to talk to him about the book. He's on book tour right now. Look at that, pickled onions.
Pickled onions.
In, book tour in San
The
Diego.
photography is gorgeous.
Oh, it's a gorgeous. It's really not. It's food porn. It's not
yeah,
a cookbook.
That's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
It's a book to make you go. "Oh, I need to.
Yeah,
eat
that's
now."
I'm
that's
really
how
hungry.
I design Windows everywhere. You know, it's the same thing. It's just porn.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Sure, Windows porn.
It's a picture. Here's a picture of an Intel 8086 processor.
I should be taking.
Yeah, baby.
Should be taking more photos of these whiskey bottles through this.
Yeah,
these
you could
past
do
couple of
that.
years.
You
Yeah.
absolutely could do that. Hey, let's take a little time out. Now I can, because we're going to do the Xbox segment.
There we go.
And that's coming up next as you continue through your journey through the land of Wintel. But first, a word from our sponsor. It's actually about Intel with 2 L's, intelligence. Our show today brought to you by Flashpoint. You know, governments have intelligence agencies to keep an eye on flashpoints around the world and what's going on. As a business, you need the same info. You need Flashpoint. For security leaders, oh boy, this has been some year, right? Just look at the Intel stock. 2024 has been a year like no other. Cyber threats, physical security concerns have continued to increase. In fact, I bet a lot of you listen to Windows Weekly specifically because you're trying to get that intelligence. And now, look, oh man, geopolitical instability, adding a new layer of risk and uncertainty. All this affects your business. I mean, I'll just give you a few numbers. Last year, a staggering 84% increase in ransomware attacks. That's almost double. 34% jump in data breaches. And that means trillions of dollars in financial losses, threats to safety worldwide. This is serious stuff. And this is where Flashpoint comes in. Flashpoint empowers organizations to make those mission critical decisions that will keep their people and assets safe. You can't make decisions unless you've got the information. By combining cutting-edge technology with the expertise of world-class analyst teams, the best in the business. And with Ignite, Flashpoint's award-winning threat intelligence platform, you get access to critical data, finished intelligence, you get alerts, you get analytics, and it's all in one place. All under one roof. Ignite from Flashpoint. Maximize your existing security investments. Some Flashpoint customers avoid $500 million in fraud loss annually and have a 482% ROI in 6 months. Not a surprise, Flashpoint earned Frost & Sullivan's 2024 Global Product Leadership Award for unrivaled threat data and intelligence. As an SVP of cyber operations at a big U.S. financial institution, you would know the name, I'm not allowed to say it. They said, Flashpoint saves us over $80 million in fraud losses every year. Their proactive approach and sharp insights are crucial in keeping our financial institutions secure. They're not just a solution, they're a strategic partner helping us stay ahead of cyber threats. You need this. It's no surprise Flashpoint is trusted not just by mission-critical businesses, but by governments worldwide too. That's true intelligence. To access the industry's best threat data and intelligence, Visit flashpoint.io today. Flashpoint.io. Man, write that down. Put that on your top of your to-do list. Flashpoint.io. We thank them so much for supporting Windows Weekly. Of course, you support us when you go there. Flashpoint.io. I think people listen to this show for intelligence too. They may be disappointed, but I think.
I was going to say, I'm so sorry.
No, I think this Intel thing, for instance, big blip on my radar all of a sudden.
Yep.
Very interesting.
Especially the Xbox news. That is, you need to.
Well, that's why I listen.
Yeah.
As a.
Don't we have an Xbox thing now? Didn't I hear one?
There's a reason Richard does the whiskey thing after Xbox, and this year it's been painfully obvious.
Richard, are you implying that you might have created something for us?
No, I thought Kev had it.
Kevin, do you have? Is that it? That's not much. Can you do better than that?
Listen, if this was my wake-up alarm, I'd still be asleep.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Nope, that's pretty good.
Do it again, baby.
Oh, this is the backwards Halo theme. Okay.
Yeah.
If you play it backwards, it says Xbox is dead.
It is not dead. And it's time now for the Xbox segment.
Do it again, baby.
Not a lot of great news this week, but there was a Tokyo Game Show, so Microsoft showed off a bunch of new games that were coming to Game Pass. None of these really jump out at me. They're remastering the original StarCraft and StarCraft 2, so those are coming to PC Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate. This is actually one of the other problems with Game Pass, because with Game Pass Standard, they're not getting a lot of these new games day and date, right? So as they announce these things, they're also announcing games that are coming to Xbox Game Pass Standard that are actually older games that are, have been elsewhere before, whatever. So there's just nothing, I don't know.
It's hard to get excited about both new and old in one
I know.
bunch.
There's something that Indiana Jones game is coming on December 9th, which I feel like we knew, but I don't know. Like I said, nothing super, super exciting sticks out there, which is a good segue to this next thing, because they just announced the first Game Pass games coming to Game Pass for October. MLB The Show 24. So that's a good one.
1 year after the acquisition.
Oh,
how did I write it in the notes?
Finally.
I wrote, first Game Pass titles of October reveal a bonanza of Activision titles is what I wish we were discussing.
But no.
Is not what happened. Yep.
Somehow they feel like they're turning Game Pass into a humble bundle, right? It's like where you get your old titles from.
I mean, that was actually the original strategy for it, oddly. But yeah. So, yeah.
The Show 24.
Yeah, so The Show 24 and Open Roads are actually two games that were previously made available on Xbox Game Pass, but now they're coming to Game Pass Standard for the first time. So these are two examples of older games coming. Not old, but games that launched day and date originally on the old version of the subscription and are now coming to the version.
I like this strategy. You've run out of games to deploy, so you create a new standard for what Game Pass is, and then you slowly move the games over to them as to have a new release schedule. This is brilliant.
I know brilliance is a strong word.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
And then other games. I don't know.
Genius.
Yes. Inscription, Mad Streets, and Sifu.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Starfield it's been a year. How long has Starfield been on? A couple of years?
Oh, it seems like more than that. Yeah. I love Starfield.
I feel like it might be. Yeah, so there's a new DLC coming it's called Shattered Space, the story
September
expansion.
23, so yeah, more than a year.
Yep, and that's coming Xbox consoles, PC, and Game Pass. Game Pass now, it's going to be so hard to even explain. So will it come to Game Pass Standard on day one? I think not, but I guess we'll see.
Is this a hit? Is it a hit? Or did we expect more from the creators of Elder Scrolls and Skyrim?
Yep. I know it's hard to say. I do think Game Pass with its day one thing has kind of muddled the water a little bit. Mm-hmm. When you bring a movie that might have gone to Netflix to the theaters, and you just put it on Netflix or Apple TV on day one, and is it a hit? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like Wolves.
Somebody built a spreadsheet about how much money they were throwing away by putting it on Game Pass, and everything has changed.
Yeah, I don't know. It's getting hard to gauge these things, which I think, honestly, from the perspective of these companies, might be part of the plan. I mean, maybe it's better if we don't know, because they get to control the narrative. No, I mean, because they can kind of control it. Yeah. I don't know. And then this, wasn't sure where else to put this. This happened or I became aware of it just before we started the show. But former Microsoft executive Jay Allard is joining Amazon, where he's going to report to former Microsoft executive
Panos Panay.
I love it.
Yep.
A little cult's being built inside of Amazon, and they own a. This is awesome.
That's
I know.
weird.
Did
weird. Allard work for Panay?
No, he did not.
No. Allard's older school than Panay is.
And he was a big shot, right? He was. What did he run Windows?
He was the CTO and something else of Xbox for many years.
Xbox.
He's most famous, stupidly, for the Courier tablet that never came into existence.
That was killed at the last minute because it didn't have email.
Yeah, so the fun coincidence there is that Courier was killed by Steven Sinofsky, who was Panos Panay's old boss.
So it all goes around, comes around.
But here's Jay Allard's real claim to fame. In 1994, he tried to convince Bill Gates that the internet was real and we need to start paying attention to it.
That's where I know the name.
And Gates ignored him, and he finally, internet tidal wave happened.
Silverberg was in on that too back in the day.
Oh no, he wasn't the only one. But I mean, he penned the original. He explained it in plain English, and had it distributed around the company.
Yeah.
We need to do this, and he was an early voice.
And didn't listen. But listen, that's not a bad team to revamp the Alexa stack.
Yeah,
a set of outsiders. They might have even had a little Cortana contaminant, and they're now trying to figure out how to turn that into a product that Amazon cares about.
Yeah. So another Microsoft coincidence. The reason Amazon has Alexa is because a guy named Charlie Kindle, who used to be COM and whatever else at Microsoft, actually Media Center, home server, a bunch of stuff.
He was in dev for a while too. He was great guy. Great guy.
COM he was basically, I don't want to say an architect. It's kind of a strong word.
One of the COM gods.
I think he was one of the COM gods. So he tried to get Microsoft to do what became Alexa, and didn't see a use for it. So he left and went to Amazon. So there's a whole little circle of inbreeding going on here that is not necessarily healthy.
It's a small group, really.
That's interesting. All right.
I presume Panos recruited Allard.
Must be, huh?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
that would be my presumption.
Bring in your dream team.
Mary Jo is the one who told me about this, and my response was, "That's insane." And then, who is reporting to who?
Right.
Because
no question.
Yeah, so I guess it's Jay Allard is reporting to
Panos Panay.
Panos Panay.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm pumped. Are you pumped?
I'm as pumped as I can be, I guess.
I want you to go to an event with your Alexa in your hand and have Panos take it from you.
Yes. Right. And then a program that's only respond to his voice. He's such a jerk.
I think we're due for a voice assistant that is better.
You know what? And Allard got out at the darkest time at Microsoft. He got out in 2010.
That's what I was trying to just look up. So
what's he been doing since?
He had like a business for law enforcement, and
it was a company that could recover stolen bikes, which sounds kind of weird. He worked at Intellivision for one day.
This is not good.
I know.
I can see Panos coming to him.
He's what we would call a serial entrepreneur.
You can help people recover their stolen bikes, or you can change the world.
I like it.
Did you just want to make sugar water for the rest of your life?
Exactly. You figured out what I was talking about. All right, let's take a little break. Back of the book coming up. We got a tip of the week, an app of the week, a Runner's Radio pick of the week, and then Brown Liquor's back, baby.
Never left.
Okay. If you want to be pedantic about it, that's Richard Campbell on your right. In between, we're making a Paul Thurrott sandwich, and you are watching Windows Weekly.
It's a soft nougaty center in today's show.
He's tasty, isn't he? He's tasty. Our show today brought to you by Melissa. the data quality expert since 1985. I've been telling you about Melissa for a long time. If you have data, you need to keep it clean. It decays, it erodes, it gets bad over time, faster than you might be thinking. But Melissa can help, whether you need the full white glove service or just the nuts and bolts. Melissa is the best choice for your enterprise for data cleansing. Melissa has helped over 10,000 businesses worldwide harness accurate data with their industry-leading solutions, processing over, get this, 1 trillion with a T, addresses, emails, names, and phone records. Melissa offers integrations and apps in platforms and spreadsheet editors like Microsoft 365, like your Google Sheets, your Dynamics 365, Esri, Stripe, Shopify. You can have it in it. So when you're doing the data thing, it automatically checks it, corrects it, augments it. Melissa makes it easy for you to cleanse and standardize your data within popular platforms you're already using. That helps improve ROI, that optimizes business efficiency. And I got to be honest, it elevates the customer experience. Customers don't like getting 4 catalogs to the same address. Customers don't like it when you misdeliver their products. Be sure to check out Melissa Marketplace. There you'll see an amazing selection, on-demand access to premium third-party data. You can use it to improve campaign performance, to enhance your data visualizations, to drive better business decisions. Some of the resources, just as an example, I mean, the marketplace has got all sorts of stuff, but there's consumer, property owner, and business contact data broken down by industry, location, job title, and over 400 other attributes. There's a global address database, a master list of, get this, 200 plus million verified U.S. Postal Service addresses, coverage for 40 plus countries as well as USPS carrier route and boundaries, zip code data, parcel boundaries, other location data for the U.S. and Canada too. Melissa now offers transparent pricing for all its services, so you don't have to guess. You know exactly what it's going to cost when you're estimating your business budget. And you'll be glad to know that your data is just as precious to Melissa as it is to you. Melissa's services use secure encryption for all file transfers and an information security ecosystem built on the ISO 27001 framework. They adhere to GDPR policies. They maintain SOC 2 compliance. Of course they do. Your data is gold. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. Melissa, M-E-L-I-S-S-A, melissa.com/twit. We thank him so much for supporting Windows Weekly. You support Windows Weekly too when you go to that address, melissa.com/twit. Back of the book time. Let's kick things off with Paul Thurrott's tip of the week.
So Microsoft has made Windows 11 24H2 available, which means you can now go download the ISO unless you have an ARM computer, but that's coming. So just Google download Windows 11 ISO to get to the site. If you're on Bing, you probably get there eventually. And there's a bunch of different options. But the advice here, or the tip, so to speak, is that you should have some kind of external recovery media of whatever kind. You can make a recovery disk in Windows, but I actually think it's better to use the Windows 11 installation media.
I think you should use a Windows 7 installation.
It would probably be faster. Honestly, it hasn't changed much, oddly. But yeah, so the Windows
burn
11,
burn a new drive.
Burn a new one, yeah. So if you have one, you should always have at least one, like a USB-C, whatever. It's time to refresh that is the point. And maybe you need the ISO for other reasons, for VMs or whatever, but that is available now. So you should grab that.
As soon as I get my Snapdragon Elite developers kit, I'm going to burn myself an ISO of Windows 24H2.
Are you? I don't trust you.
I could burn, I don't know, maybe something else. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, well, there you go. So Adobe announced and released the latest versions of Photoshop and Premiere Elements. So these things are, $99 each new, $79 an upgrade, or as a bundle together for $149. I would wait for a sale. They're always on sale, or not always on sale.
But this is not a subscription product.
No, this is the, again, they don't call it this, but the perpetual thing. So you can... Premiere is still not available through the store. So if you buy it through the Microsoft store, the Photoshop version, you get that nice liberal licensing thing where you can put it on up to 10 computers, which is really nice.
10?
Yeah, it's good. So the version that you buy directly from Adobe or from wherever else is limited to 2, I believe, and you have to, it's the type of thing where you have to deactivate it and remember to do that. But it's the stuff that's in Photoshop that is like normal people would need, So they have some of the generative array stuff and the ability to adjust or create a depth of blur in a photo that doesn't have it, or.
So a lot of the AI stuff is migrating into Elements.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think Elements, based on many, many years of experience, I would say is the type of thing you upgrade maybe every second or third year. You don't go year to year to year. It's not always that big of an update. But
if you're going to go down that path, you get Creative Cloud, right? Like if
you never want to stop paying Adobe, they have that plan.
$35 a month, something like that.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of money. Yep.
Yeah, but it's. What do you need, right? If you want all the bits and you want to be up to date, that's the big one.
Yep. This is for.
I'm surprised they still sell standalone software like Creative Cloud or nothing.
I'm surprised they make Premiere Elements. Honestly, I Photoshop Elements I can make a case for because it's just kind of a standard need. But maybe they just sell enough of it; it makes sense.
I think it's a gateway drug. It gets people started.
I agree.
Hope
I think it's gateway drugging.
Yeah, that could be.
You want, and I'm sure there's 101 teases inside those softwares. Oh, that's part of the full product.
If you really wanted to do
a little yellow banner appears, if you get to save this to Adobe Cloud, you could, And
I bet you anything that will apply your $99 immediately to, that's 3 months of Creative Cloud.
For your month and a half of.
That's it.
Or whatever, Creative Cloud. Yeah, maybe.
I can never remember if I have a subscription to Adobe or not because I periodically get angry and cancel it.
Yep.
And then I go, oh, but I need it. And then I resubscribe.
I mean, I would argue we're on this path, right? Because it's become very normal now for you to sign up to Netflix to watch a set of shows and then cancel and so forth. Like those are a little further down the consumer utilization path than these things.
Adobe knows this, so they charge you when you can't.
They want Well, they a lot of their
subscription.
They want you to sign up for a year, right?
Yeah. And if you cancel after 3 months, they still charge you.
I mean, who's further down the path are New York Times, WAPO, those kinds of things. Because when you go to cancel those, they immediately offer you a discount year.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I just did this. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But it's just anyone who has had a Sirius radio, whatever it's called, has done this where they try to charge you the full amount and you give them a call.
Cancel.
You just talk your way through it. And it's like, all right, I think they paid me actually to use it. It's bizarre.
There should be, I think Ben Stiller should do a show called The Retention Division.
Yep.
Where it's all about the people behind the scenes who are there to get you to sign up.
You could have like the mole on the inside is like, listen, I don't like what they're doing to you either. I had a person at RCN, they would hang up on me.
Yeah.
And I finally got through to someone. I'm like, I think they're overcharging me. She goes, they are. It was unbelievable.
This is good. This is good. I think we see a new Apple Plus TV show.
There you go.
They are
Retention Division. Yep. You thought you were out, but you're not.
You're never getting out, baby.
You're never getting out.
We're keeping you. Now, when I canceled the cable internet service here to switch to the fiber, it's like, can you tell me why you're canceling? It's like, I'm buying a faster product for less money. Any questions?
Oh.
Like,
though, you could, I say like, I died, I moved, I've tried everything.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm calling for Leo Laporte. He's dead now, and he doesn't want his Comcast subscription.
I must have told this.
But I could give it to you for 99 cents a month.
When the Jehovah's Witnesses would come to the door, my friend Gary, who got me into writing, would tell them he was all set because he was a Masonite. And the first time he said it, I was like, Masonite? And he goes, yeah, it's a countertop. But they were always like, oh, that's great.
Oh, well.
They thought there was like a, I don't know what they thought, like a Mennonite, maybe? Like a Mennonite or something?
A Masonite.
A Masonite.
You're
I'm a Corian myself, but okay, fine.
I've reached the level of Corian. Yeah.
Granted all the way,
wizard
brothers.
Or something now.
Granted all the way. I like my countertops radioactive.
All right, Richard Campbell.
Yes.
Run as radio.
I got an adult show this week. I've talked to Nikki Chappell, who's a fellow podcaster, actually does a podcast on the governance of M365.
Oh, wow.
It's called the M365 Compliance Podcast.
If I need to get to sleep sometime soon, I will download.
This is about being a grown-up, and a lot of sysadmins, that's their job, right? And we dug into the classic one for, there's a lot of pressure right now on turning on Copilot for M365, but it includes that little phrase, you have to make sure your data estate is in order.
Oh, God.
And so it's like, what does this mean really? And to Nikki's credit, she knows exactly what it means. Here you go. First off, knowing you will never be in order, right? It's a path, just like every other security requirement. All you're doing is trying to be better. And it involves tools like Purview. And in general, especially she says at the beginning, because she does this for a lot of companies, like the Pareto's law says, it's mostly about retiring old data, about at least moving it into something that identifies as an archive to be left out of Copilot's machinations, because it just causes problems. And we also dove down this, pick a small project, pick an internal project, like if you're gonna do this. And so just taking off pieces of the organization like HR and getting it well organized, and then maybe that can be Copilot-ified, and so on. So it was very constructive to have, to talk to someone who's really done it for a bunch of organizations, to say this is what it means to move down that path and have more confidence that this thing your employers always presume you have squared away, data governance, is closer to squared away. And that's all I got.
That's all. That's it. Well, then I think you have earned your brown liquor pick of the week time.
I was looking back through the list, and I realized three times now over the past couple of months, because I've been reorganizing here, I dug into stash of whiskey, and I think I had this Russell's on the shelf there, stored away in a box because it moved with us for a couple of years, maybe 3. So it was an excuse to open it up and take a taste. And you've never heard of it, I imagine. Russell's Reserve. It's a bourbon. It is it's in fact the only secondary brand product owned by Wild Turkey. I've never talked about Wild Turkey on the show before. It's one of your sort of kind of whiskeys. It's one of the originals. It's got a story behind it, like all of them do.
I always associate it with drunks, to be honest.
Well, when you think about your basic bourbons, right? Like when you talk about real basic bourbon, what do you talk about? You talk about Wild Turkey. You talk about Jim Beam. You probably talk about Jack as well, although nominally Jack is not a bourbon because of the maple filtration. It's a Tennessee
but these are all
whiskey.
kind of
they're well whiskeys. They are
whiskey.
basic whiskeys that are reasonably priced.
Are they good?
Often mocked. Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. Right. In this particular case, when you talk about the story of Wild Turkey, and I won't spend a lot of time on it because we're not actually talking about Wild Turkey per se, is as a gentleman by the name of Thomas Rippey, back in 1891, builds the Old Hickory Distillery outside of Lawrenceburg. They survive Prohibition, but kind of lose their brand. They kind of go away from that. And really, as they get back into distilling bourbon in the 1930s, they're just selling it to wholesalers. And this is where an organization called Austin Nichols, named for the man, is one of the largest wholesalers of the whiskey that's being made by the Old Hickory Distillery. And then in 1940, an executive at Austin Nichols, a guy named Thomas McCarthy, takes some of the samples of the versions that the Old Hickory Distillery is making with him on a turkey hunting trip. And they're good enough that his friends keep asking him for that Wild Turkey bourbon. This might be an apocryphal story. Nobody can really nail it down.
It sure sounds like it.
But that's where the name sort of comes from. And so, it's important. The fun part is thinking here, this staple whiskey was originally made by a company that was not doing their own distillation. Austin Nichols created the labels and actually ran that as a business for several years, buying from the other distillery until they finally purchased the distillery in 1971 and named it the Wild Turkey Distillery. That didn't last for very long. 9 years later, Pernod Ricard buys it. That's one of the big conglomerates buying up alcohol all over the world, although they spun it off to the Campari Group in 2009, and that's how it's resided ever since. And there's a dozen, maybe 18 different versions of Wild Turkey you can buy, and we're not going to talk about any of them. We're going to talk about Russell's instead, because Russell's is actually about a guy named Jimmy Russell. Jimmy Russell went to work for Austin Nichols in 1953, and he still works there.
What?
His son has joined the company. He's been a master distiller now for 60 plus years. His son has been a master distiller for 20 years. And back in 1998, the company basically said, if you want your own label, we'll produce it for you. And so Russell's Reserve is literally the master distiller of Wild Turkey, still making his own whiskey from Wild Turkey. So the first release was in 2001. You don't make a whiskey that quickly. It clearly was just directly from the Wild Turkey collection, and it was a 101. This is basically the 2005 style, which is a 90 proof, 45% ABV. They also make a rye. So literally the same mash bill. If there's anything you can complain about with Wild Turkey, it's that it's awfully sweet, and there's a reason for that. The mash bill is 75% corn. 13% rye, that's your flavor grain, and 12% barley, which is a relatively high amount of barley. But with that much corn, you kind of need more barley because you need the amylase from the barley to digest the corn and make it into ethanol instead of methanol and poisoning people. So if you're going to run corn that high, you got to run barley high, which is one of the reasons this thing smells like candy, right? Like it is sweet. Yeah, you know what? Lucky Charms has nothing on this. It's very sweet. It's not burny at all. A little bit of heat comes down real nice. Like not a lot of spice to it. It's pretty harmless.
It's like a sugar drink. It sounds like it's like soda pop,
except it's 45% alcohol.
Yeah.
Now, part of what they're doing here is that their new make when it comes off the line is only at 55%, which is very low. Typically you barrel it in the early 60s. 62 is common. So, one of Turkey's claims to fame is that they only come up to 55%. And there's another reason for that, which is they use more of the run. So when you think back to when we were talking about how they do distillation with this idea that you have heads, hearts, and tails, right? So the initial thing that comes out of the still is pretty bad. It's the heads, and you don't use that directly. You don't want to drink that stuff. It'll make you go blind. You put it back into the mash, and it gets recycled. The heart is the part that you're going to keep to actually put in barrels.
Are you slaughtering an animal, or are you talking about what is
heads, hearts,
happening?
and tails, right?
Okay.
And the head will kill you.
And with
the heart
tails,
is good.
Yeah.
What happens to the tail?
The tails is when the alcohol level starts to tail off, and you start to get more of the longer congeners. And so, some distilleries focus on a very narrow heart. Right? They use less of the overall thing. Now, and especially in bourbon, you would take everything that's left over, all those heads and tails, and put it back into the still. It's part of the sour mash process. But in the case of Wild Turkey, and I think this is an optimization point, and it's one of the reasons their alcohol level is so low, they keep a lot more of the tail in. So they produce more alcohol per run in the process at a lower level, which is a little easier on the barrel too, which is also why their barrels sell very well, because they haven't had a lot of the flavors pulled from the wood near as much. So it's what makes it a reserve then, knowing this is literally Wild Turkey, is where the barrels come from. So there's only one. There's a set of rick houses. They're all the same at Wild Turkey. They're 7 floors high, and they're wooden and stacking. And so they're horizontal mounts. And Russell's comes from the center floor. So the higher floors tend to be hotter, so they lose faster. Lower floors tend to be slower. So they're literally, of the 7 floors, they're pulling from 3, 4, and 5 for everything that's in the reserve. And that's why it's also 10 years old, which is not normal for bourbon. Bourbon tends to be in the 5-year range. It's a pretty old bourbon compared to most. Again, very sweet. You know what I would do with this? I'd be making cocktails with it.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
noticed
really
they kind of emphasize, the Boulevardier and stuff.
And the Boulevardier is great. You know why? Yeah. It's got Campari in it, which is a bitter.
To cut the sweet.
Cut the sweet back a bit. On the other hand, and so this is a special edition. Like regular turkey's $20 a bottle. This is $40. So arguably, if you want that sweeter mixer, I'd buy this. It's a nicer bottle than the regular turkey. 45% is a good number to come in, and it'll mix nicely. It's usable. There's nothing wrong with this. Put this in your well as a little higher class than the turkey, and make yourself some good bourbon cocktails, and you'll be happy. Drinking it neat, you might as well be sucking a lollipop.
Here's the a picture of the 7 stories. Wow, that is.
And there's Jimmy and Eddie.
Yeah,
that's Jimmy and Eddie.
Jimmy and Eddie. Mm-hmm. There they are.
There they are.
Eddie Russell and Jimmy. Look at Jimmy. Jimmy's been doing this a while.
A long time, more than 60 years. They're both in like the Bourbon Hall of Fame. Like they're both seriously successful, great
That's
whiskey
cool.
makers.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but a father and son working together, and nothing bad to say about that. It's all good.
Yeah.
So listen, this is not my, I'm a neat drinker most of the time. This is not something I'm going to pick, but it's a nice little well elevation. It's going to go on in my liquor cabinet for mixing.
Russell's Reserve. It's wild turkey for fancy people.
There you go. You nailed it. Nailed it.
Really good.
Very good. As always, the whiskey segment's always the most fun. Thank you very much, Richard Campbell, for
Pleasure.
Great stories and pictures, and the website is worth checking out too. The Russell's Reserve. But that's about it for this edition of Windows Weekly. I hate to say it, but our time has come. Paul Thurrott, you're heading down from Dallas to is the conference you're there for over?
It ends today's the
Your
last day.
tech, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So people's chance to see you is
Diminishing. They're having a party tonight, so
good. Go to the
I'll
party
to that.
if you're in
Yep.
Dallas. And then you're on to your home in Mexico City, which is great. I'm jealous. That'll be a lot of fun. You'll find Paul's work online at thurrott.com. He doesn't matter where he is. He's always filing. Always be filing is his motto.
Yep.
THURRO good.com. His books, Windows Everywhere, the one with all the pictures.
It's a picture book.
It's a picture book.
I went in a different direction.
History of Windows through its development environments. Lots of pictures. No pictures.
Yep.
But a great book, a great read, is available at leanpub.com, along with the must-have for everybody who has Windows 11, the Field Guide to Windows 11 with Windows 10 built in. Actually, that one does have a lot of pictures, but they're screenshots.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Have safe travels, and we'll see you next week from Mexico. Richard Campbell is, of course, the host of 2 fabulous podcast shows, Run As Radio and .NET Rocks. You'll find them all at runasradio.com. Also, a much-in-demand public speaker who is heading out soon.
It begins, this weekend. I'm heading out. I've got a couple of days in the Netherlands doing a keynote there, Perils and Promise of AI.
Oh, boy.
But also doing a talk on the future of power. And whenever I do that talk, I include the power grid of that country.
Oh,
and
interesting.
talk about how it's evolving. So I've been studying for the past couple of weeks the Netherlands power grid, and it's my
Just
favorite
like a
part.
terrorist would.
Yeah, no, I pretty much know pretty much all the pieces now. They have exactly one.
I know where all the
operational
vulnerabilities
nuclear power
are.
plant. Yeah,
I think this is just fascinating. So you're an autodidact, and they bring you in because of your ability to absorb and synthesize information and then deliver it in an
enjoyable way. That's it. But
it's really great.
On the Wednesday next week, I will that morning fly to Ibiza. So in theory, if everything goes well, I will be in Ibiza for the show.
Yeah.
might be
Ibiza
in a
and
nightclub.
the Netherlands are exactly the same. So
Basically
that's,
the same thing, yeah.
Where they
Now-
at midnight they fill the entire club with foam.
Yes.
And it's just a real fun time.
I am there to do a wedding renewal for the couple that convinced me to do weddings in the first place. It's their 15th anniversary, and they do a renewal every 5 years.
that's a little.
But we're doing it in an ABBA theme. So goodness knows what I'll be wearing for the show.
Mamma mia.
Yeah.
Wow.
There may be some
Okay.
silver lame in my immediate
Fernando.
future.
Richard Campbell, the gay
Richard Fernando Campbell.
And then I'm going on from there to NDC Porto and then over to Warsaw and then home.
How exciting.
It'll be
You're
fun.
going to have a great time.
I will for sure.
Well, we will talk to you in all those places, I'm sure.
Yeah, I hope so.
We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific. That would be, let's see, 11 that would be 2 p.m. Eastern time.
8 o'clock at night in Ibiza.
8 o'clock in Ibiza time. If you're in Ibiza, you'll enjoy it.
Well, it will be well before you're going out to the club, so no problem.
Perfect. Yeah, if he comes back foam covered, we'll know.
You look kind of shiny, Richard. Is there something we need to know?
You can watch us do this show on 7 different streams. Now, the best one is my favorite is the Club Twit Discord. If you're a member of the club, $7 a month. Of course, you can always listen after the fact to ad-free versions of our shows, which is in and of itself a valuable thing. But you also get access to the Discord, where there's a really great group of people conversating about all the things that we do on Twit, and you also can watch the show there live and talk with people behind the scenes. But that's just one of 7 streams. There's also youtube.com/twit/live. There's twitch.tv/twit. There's Kick. There's Facebook. There's LinkedIn, and there's x.com. So pick the place you want to watch. 754 people watching live right now. We appreciate all of that. But the vast majority of people find it easier to watch after the fact. On-demand versions of the show available at twit.tv/WW. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly. And, of course, you can always subscribe in your favorite podcast player and get it automatically. Windows Weekly Audio, Windows Weekly Video. Just search for the one you want. And Club Twit members, you know where to go to get your ad-free versions. If you're not yet a member of the club, we'd love to have you. It's a great way to support what we do if you like what you hear here. If you, for instance, make any money at all on Intel breaking up, you should spend some of that money at Club Twit, twit.tv/Club Twit. And we love having our members. Lisa Laporte, yes? Oh, we have a new feature in our club, which we just announced. I don't know if we've announced it. I might be the first to tell you about it. We now offer you additional time in the club if you refer it. How much do they get if somebody joins? A month free for every person that joins. Up to 12 months free. So here's a way to subsidize your Club Twit membership. Get a friend to join. It's good for us. It's good for you. It's good for America. Again, twit.tv.
You had me right till the end.
It's good for everybody. I'm running for office, sure. twit.tv/Club Twit. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. Safe travels to you both.
Thank you, friend.
We'll see you right back here next Wednesday for Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.